Insert Psalm 23 here. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. What's happening? Benton here is my, it is, it is my pleasure and honor to address you fine folks who are not yet arrived, and the replay crew, the few, the proud, the replay crew driving. I am driving an 18-wheeler on I-40 east of Nashville, actually east of Lebanon, Tennessee. Lebanon, we left out of. Crawling up this hill, 45. Man, I had time in my schedule yesterday, so I walked to a nearby liquor store after finishing my shift, driving quite early in the day, and 1 pint of Murphy's Stout beer. I wanted Guinness, however, they were out of 22-ounce Guinness Extra Stout. And it was enjoyable, the Murphys, and what do they say? Everything in moderation, including moderation. And 1 pint, cannot do much of anything to a person, based on behavior and intoxication. But man, I'm wrecked this morning. My kidneys are giving me the business. So I believe that's probably, again, never say never, but that is perhaps the last time I will be indulging. And I do believe it's instructive. There are certainly lessons, especially with the recent, within the last 7 days or so, the peaking out, whatever, ecstatic, blissful state, extended ecstatic, blissful state. And these are technical terms in, reading about Buddhism and, Eastern philosophy, spirituality, and such. Probably some mention of these concepts in the Holy Bible as well. And then understanding all the while that necessarily I would experience something of a come down from such heights. And I would say that such heights are not even, desirable at the level of, seeking to inhabit such a state. More of a byproduct. Well, that shit's over with, at least for now. Certainly comparing how I woke up the prior morning with a good message, arguably, on the previous, the first live stream of day before. Today, I woke up this morning without negative thoughts and without fears and anxieties, certainly, but way less of the, calm, abiding, overflow, my cup overfloweth type of thoughts, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. And my kidneys will certainly go right back to normal. In fact, they've been hurting all morning, but they did not begin to hurt until I drank a cup, about 20 ounces of water mixed with the juice of one fresh lemon, fresh squeezed lemon juice. And then, of course, coffee is quite good for the kidneys, believe it or not. And I mean black coffee, of course. Goodness gracious. Didn't quite realize I was on such a hill climb, as I call it. This is an extended hill climb. I used to travel this section of I-40 quite often, but it's been a while since I've been out here. Let's see. I believe we have something around 500 more miles to drive. Then we will be nearly out of time on our 70-hour clock, and necessitating, or at least bringing upon the reality of a 34-hour restart. But yeah, back to the kidneys, the pain I've come to learn through these 3+ years now, probably closer to 4 years of chronic illnesses that I have experienced and continue to experience, that in fact this is that sensation in the kidney region is actually, that's the kidneys being stimulated. So my interpretation is the water and the lemon juice, again, none of this is health advice, because uncharacteristically, and apologies if this is TMI, generally as soon as I wake up, there's an urge to empty the bladder, and that was not present. So it was like, wait a minute, this is strange. Although the ability was there, the pressing, hey, it's time to go, let's get on with it, was not there. The urgency, and then kind of feeling just like needing more rest, but that's fairly normal to wake up that way, just the body in a restful state. And then I guess it's been about 2 hours of fairly intense kidney stimulation on both sides. It's more strong on what I perceive to be, my left side, from my perspective, which is part of how I know it's not kidney pain, because when my kidneys did hurt virtually 24 hours a day, it was always like, when that began to go away, it would be, I would feel it more on the left side eventually, and would not feel it on my right side. And in fact, now that I'm thinking that way, that's what's happening. But it's, pain can be perceived as, this is bad, I don't want to feel this, but in fact is oftentimes a good thing, right? Some sort of healing, right? And that's what this is, the healing of the damage of 1 pint of stout beer. Incredible. And who knows what's being put in these these items. Just looking at the products that were sold at this very nice upscale liquor store, and then how is this stuff manufactured these days? And sure, it's a brand, associated with Irish, Irish pub stout or whatever, but have these larger brands, well, not larger, have these well-known brands been bought up by larger conglomerates, who then alter, the way that it's manufactured with chemicals and adulterants. So the beer, in fact, could be completely fine. In fact, the Guinness, I've had no issues with the Guinness. So who knows what I even drink? Just because the can has this logo and branding associated with something from the past, I mean, who's to say what I actually consumed? Yeah, especially when I think of it in the context of the other products that were on offer. So yeah, actually, I may go ahead and have a Guinness at some point and see if this happens. The same effect happens. But again, it's just, there's been many times I thought about, well, maybe I could have a beer, and then realizing, well, it doesn't really fit in with the timing of my meal schedule at this time, right? So there's been many times when the idea was considered and then, foregone or dismissed, which is a pretty good sign, certainly. And I do well, and technically, ethanol, the part of alcohol that causes the person to have a buzz or a feeling, that certainly is poison by definition. An otherwise healthy person, see, I'm not sure that I meet that metric uh, necessarily, although in some ways, modern medicine will say 1 to 2 beers a day for a adult male. Well, unfortunately, probably based on my low body weight, the one drink per day for a female probably would be more appropriate. And a pint is, actually would be 1.25 drinks in this case. So who knows? Shout out to the chat. Can't quite read the comments at this time. Garbage ass StreamYard with this referral link button blocking the most recent comment. Well done, bozos. So the lesson of this morning for me, and yeah, I'm feeling it quite intensely on in the kidney region right now. So it's letting me know, hey, buddy, maybe reconsider next time. But what I'm finding instructive is, relating to these concepts that I've been working with on the more spiritually themed broadcasts of late. Specifically, how does the being choose to identify in a given new moment as time, which may well be some version of an illusion. However, it does still seem that I am experiencing the progression of time, certainly. And so still having a firm grasp of the intellectual side of these concepts and no fears of that leaving, but what seems to have left, and I've been talking about the being in alignment within oneself at the level of mind, body, and spirit. And then I've also talked about how whichever of the three is lagging behind at any given time will be the limiting factor, right? And even just this little bit of damage to the body, and again, it could also be coincidence, just because of the nature of truck driving and the nature of, various cycles and processes within the body. And I don't believe in coincidence, of course, but other things have happened and are happening, with the body. It's not the alcohol or the stout beer in a vacuum, which, by the way, is still an effective source of carbohydrate as well. There are, while the ethanol is poison, it's not necessarily without value beer, right? And I'm not advocating, merely assessing. Finally got around to purchasing a phone mount for the rig. And in typical bozo fashion, I realize now that for some reason I was only looking at Love's and TA Petro when it's Pilot Flying J that carries my brand that I like. Scotch, I think it's called, like SCOSCHE or something. Uses these very powerful magnets. And they range between like $10 and close to $60. Fortunately, there was a one for $15 that meets my needs. Still haven't decided where to mount the backup phone. Probably going to wait until perhaps I acquire a new phone. I need to work long enough. Part of me driving a truck is to grasp the inherent precariousness of the thing itself. So, most of the driving will be completed. Let's see, what is today, by the way? It's Sunday. Okay, so I've already completed the driving that will be on the next check, but I've not yet. Today is the beginning of the driving that will be on the check after that. So when I think about the amount of money in the bank account or the debit card account, which is technically a bank account, and I think about the outgoing expenses. This is budgeting, by the way. That it seems like many, if not most, Americans do not have a firm grasp on budgeting. But in thinking about the inflows and outflows of money, until I've done the work, right? A lot of folks would say, well, okay, I'm getting approximately this amount of money Friday, and then the Friday after that, approximately the same or maybe even more money. Well, that's true, but it's not true until the work is actually done, the driving is done. So I'm not willing to count on that. And I would say that, provided for the slim possibility of no paycheck Friday after next, I'm not willing to drop $436 plus a $15 case on a new phone. But once I'm reasonably assured of receiving a paycheck, not this coming Friday, but the one after, then okay, now the $450 fits into the budget, if this makes sense. And from observing other folks, the way that I've taught myself to think and approach budgeting and money, few people. Now, I will say this, we do seem to have a greater proportion of like-minded folks in these so-called truth communities. I really don't hear that many people, in the so-called panelverse that are going through these tales of woe financially. So most folks seem to have a fairly solid grasp of their own finances, which is a good sign, I would say, and is more associated with, so-called conservatism. More associated, certainly not a given. Certainly not a given. And I had considered purchasing some products that are good for gout, such as tart cherry extract and celery seed extract, and they could be on their way to arrive at the Amazon locker. Now, since I'm taking today where I'm stopping, now maybe I will order them to arrive tomorrow since I'm taking a restart, because those products would certainly prove beneficial as it stands based on what I'm experiencing. Later today, I will probably be just fine though. Yes, see this bozo, there's this billboard out here. It's been out here for years now on 40, and there's this guy trying to sell some sort of alcohol brand. I guess he's a musician of some sort, probably around my age. And the first time I ever noticed that billboard, he had this tattooed on his neck was, red lips, like a lady had kissed him on the neck. And I was immediately struck with just how bozo that concept was. And they've actually changed the billboard now where there's a guitar, the neck of a guitar obscures where that used to be, because somebody finally said, hey man, like you're not really pulling that off, right? And I'm certain in his younger days, he's not an unattractive man. In his younger days, it would have seemed less inappropriate, but and a 50-year-old with what appears to be a fresh tattoo of red lips, and probably, actually, now that I think about it, with the Music Association, hell, he probably got a cease and desist. See, I'm assuming that the person or the brand itself said, hey, actually, let's rethink this. Hell, probably the fucking Rolling Stones sent a cease and desist, now that I think about it. Or said, okay, yeah, just cut us into the a portion of the proceeds, and we'll let you have that symbol on a billboard. That's more likely, right? sure. And as I continue to, well, am I done with what I wanted to say about budgeting? Well, and of course, in a consumer society and the national religion is consumerism, well, that does affect me, right? Like, I also have a desire for products, you know, actually far beyond what some of you may experience. I'm not particularly materialistic overall. In fact, ex-wife number one probably assisted me in observing materialism. She certainly was a material girl, right? Uh, very, very materialistic. And this is also to understand, dating and having a boyfriend and a husband from a woman's perspective, although not all women. At a certain point, I became aware that, oh, well, part of her reason for wanting a boyfriend or wanting to be in a relationship when I met her was to buy him products, right? Such as she bought me cologne for my birthday, uh, which, right after we met, very early on. Uh, you know, she used to like, in fact, she helped me. Well, not entirely, but she, we certainly shared a lot, regard for Polo Ralph Lauren branding. I had just begin purchasing, Polo branded clothing back then and shoes. So now it's like, okay, we can buy. Here's a fellow, we can buy him clothes, right? Or famously, she found a Nautica puffy white jacket on sale. Bought it for me. All of this type of stuff, and I'm not immune to that. Now, I will say that at the level of utility, the old Google Pixel 6a is a great phone for the money. However, just intermittently, it gets hot as fuck. And I mean hot as fuck. It's even started crashing a little bit to where, and I, again, in a former life, I worked in IT. So I do understand, I can tell when a computer's starting to get glitchy because of overheating. So it's like, yeah, probably reboot the thing and it'll be fine. Uh, By the way, none of the Motorola's I've ever owned do this. And then the battery will drain rapidly, it seems, to coincide. So it's probably the government spying on me in an even more, pronounced fashion than normal, right? Especially with some of these topics that are being discussed. I mean, that is a logical way to look at it, right? On the Motorola's, I've certainly had uh, rapid battery drain where I was like, okay, clearly the powers that be are observing me a little more. Maybe they're observing me in real time. Maybe there's an agent somewhere, perusing through a database or, a listing of you know, individuals to surveil more closely. And by the way, this is absolutely happening, right? The algorithms, all of this data, all of everything all of us are doing on our devices, it's all going into a database or databases in real time. Uh, all of that data is certainly flowing unabated into databases, unabated databases. Database unabated. And then at some point, a human being or human beings would be able to query these databases, right? And it seems to be at this point, it's probably algorithms saying, hey, push notification to Bozo agent, double O jackass, and hey, take a look at this. You're doing nothing and getting paid anyway. Why don't you listen in on this particular bozo in real time? Why not? Why wouldn't that be happening? And not that I'm special, but certainly I am. So I've been researching phones, and I was looking at the Google Pixel 7 Pro, but I saw a few reviews where they talk about the thing gets hot, and I've been looking at the Pixel 9, and I've heard no reports of overheating or battery drain. Although the Pixels apparently don't stack up that well to other phones with the battery life, but that's okay. We will deal with that. It's a good problem to have. So, US Mobile, my carrier of choice, and more specifically on the Verizon side, US Mobile, one of the few that offers all three of the major carriers, perhaps the only one, actually. Probably not, though. They are offering through them a Google Pixel 9 for $436 with tax, a steal. And then, of course, economic stimulus being the looming specter of potentially a rise in prices directly related to tariffs. Although I suspect most of these consumer goods are not going to rise in price, and I put that up to, in fact, price deflation. When I'm going on to Amazon and I'm finding hiking boots and hiking shoes that seem to be of similar quality to what I'm experiencing with Merrell and Solomon, although the quality control doesn't seem to be quite as good, but the actual materials based on the reviews seem to be similar to what I'm getting with higher, items that are literally double the price or more. And I've finally broken down and ordered a $38 pair of hiking shoes. And so I will be able to tell you later today, assuming they arrive on time. But so to me, that's deflation, because if the market would bear $60, they would charge $60. But then $60 is a little too close to, I might as well kick in. I can just wait for the Merrills or the Salomons to go on sale. Right. And then we get into branding and prestige. And, of course, as an American, of course, I will spend, as long as it's a reasonable amount, of course, I will spend more for a recognizable brand. I am an American. I am a Generation X American, after all. The most brand conscious, perhaps, until the arrival of Gen Z. Perhaps even more so than the millennials. I don't know. What do you think? Perhaps. And I do find it instructive that we're hinting around with the spiritual topics versus today versus yesterday morning when I dove headlong directly into the spiritual topics. So, and again, that it will be an ebb and a flow over time. It's not. I certainly had no expectation of remaining in that space indefinitely. Then what fun would that be? I mean, what fun would that be overall? And also with all of this, you know, thoughts of phones, realizing just how much of a cyborg I am, fully merged with, these devices. Although it's not, entirely physically. I'm resisting the smartwatch. Apparently, what I pay US Mobile includes a smartwatch plan if I'm so inclined. I don't see the point of the smartwatch. Some of that may just be my own density. Live streams, when live streams first became a thing on YouTube, I was just like, what is the point of this? I don't understand. In fact, a shout out to Drew World Order, who was the first content creator whose live streams drew my attention. And then I got it. Then I tuned into Drew a few times. I was like, okay, now I get it. Now it makes sense. In fact, it was probably a thumbnail for a replay of one of his streams back then, and it was something about the Memphis pyramids, and of course the Memphis pyramid being, you know, in the general area where I grew up. So I'm pretty much from that area, the Delta, just across the river from the Arkansas side of the Delta, the Mississippi Delta region. We say Mississippi, but I met somebody from Mississippi who liked to put the Z's in there, so I adopted that. Yeah, next paycheck, the coming paycheck is go to Arkansas money without having to worry about, you know, car repairs if the car were to break down. Now, I'm not manifesting. Some folks get fearful. Oh, he's no, this is not. That's the opposite of manifesting. This is planning, right? You know, the money to take care of whatever could go wrong. Which, you know, when I talk about poverty versus, you know, in my specific definition of rich people, you know, this is part of folks living in poverty. Is, you know, to live in poverty would be to, you know, or more in poverty. I do have some, there are some luxuries afforded to me. So prior to going back to truck driving, I didn't have access to the funds. You know, if I had just driven with just the barest of money to Arkansas to conduct my personal business next month, you know, what if something did happen in route? You know, it's nice to know, well, whatever happens, I'll have the money, you know, at least to get towed off the fucking highway if that were to happen. I've been very fortunate and blessed in my life. I've experienced very little of that in my time for whatever reason. And then just stay in whatever hotel I feel like staying in, especially if it's in Mountain Home, Arkansas. That's damn near $100. Like, it's like, oh, shop around, and it's still going to be probably $70, right? For some reason, the hotels in that town are expensive. I used to get like deals at I forget, I think Super 8 or whatever, which is nice. It's a nice Super 8 for what it is. And in Mountain Home, Baxter County, Arkansas, in the Ozarks. And that was on like a deal, signing up through one of those fly by night, you know, hotel bookers that you could find on Google Maps or whatever. You should get it for like 65 a night, I think. The last time I got a hotel there, it was like $90. So it's nice to be able to do a night or two of that without having to really think about it. Shout out to Wings of Redemption, who used to say, you know, it costs $100 just to leave the house. And now he's bumped it up to 150. And so as soon as I heard him say that, you know, his chats started making fun of him because he's a live streamer. And I said, you know what? That actually sounds about right. It does cost between you factor in what one is paying for their vehicle and fuel and just the amount of money that's going to be spent, you know. Yeah, it is about $100 to leave the house. It's funny. Trying to think of what does it even cost just for fuel to Arkansas and back, Dallas area. Not that much, $60 maybe. So we're already into $250, and this is another thing I think people just, a lot of folks just look at, they have an amount of money in their account, and they do, okay, I can do this thing. It's like, well, broken down and accounted for. I know when I went back to work when I was in truck driving school, I was working at the airport, and at a certain point, I thought I had enough money to buy a skateboard. I was like, yeah, I wanted to get a skateboard. It's very handy to, it's a handy mode of transportation in the city, especially. It's about $150 for a complete skateboard out the door of just a skate shop, in town or whatever, without trying to go online and order and put it together yourself, you know. And I ended up miscalculating and damn near ran out of money to ride the bus to work, right? And I was like, fuck. And and I actually was breaking it down on paper and was like, yeah, it looks like I have enough, to, like, no, you don't actually, sir. You miscalculated. Like, oh, fuck. It's nice to have that buffer zone where if some shit goes. And it seems like few Americans are living that way, even if they have a high income. And this is where I'm starting to hear like this. There's a YouTube channel, this French guy, Roman something or other. He kind of does the Caleb Hammer style financial audits, and he considers himself middle class based on his income. But then he was talking about when him and his fiance split up, a lot of it was over, I think she probably, and him clearly not understanding women. I think from her perspective, she married a guy with an Ivy League education who, was making 250,000 a year just from his salary and bonuses, and then, had these side businesses, these streams of passive income. So, he might have been at 400K, right? But living in Seattle, and then so he's expecting her, and then she has an income, at the time in which they've gotten together. So he's expecting her to continue working and contributing, and thinking as a man, thinking he can logically appeal to, her logic and reason, when, well, no, in a dating and relationship scenario, it's the feelings, right? But then he's talking about, on the one hand, and this is the cognitive dissonance, he's referring to just his income as, well, I'm middle class, because remember, they are not married. So he's like, I'm middle class. But then, okay, historically, sir, like my father was considered middle class to upper middle class solely based on income. But there was no expectation that my mother would then have to go out and get a job. He's simultaneously referring to his income as middle class while saying, but of course, it's a dual income world to make it. Well, no, absolutely not, sir. A household that requires dual income to, quote, make it, that's not middle class to upper middle class. Meanwhile, this doesn't even exist in the first place. It's only rich and poor. And when they talk about the widening gap between the rich and the poor, doesn't even exist. Is there a gap between a 0 and a 1 in a binary system? No. Everything's either a 0 or a 1. You cannot measure the distance between a 0 and a 1. Now, I'm sure mathematicians will come in here and say, what are you talking about? Yeah, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I'm making a point. Or more correctly, if there is a gap or a gulf, why would that be thought of as something that's ever widening? Is a 0 always moving away from a 1 and vice versa, right? Does that make sense to anybody? This idea that over time there's a measurable distance between rich and poor? No, absolutely not. There's a perception, and a lot of it is based on indoctrination and the experiences of the past. That's what seems to be moving. The perspective is as the perspective attempts to remain fixed and static, everything else is moving away from the fixed position, which is a dead thing, of course. My human perspective belongs to this place. It's dead. Everything that's going to remain here after, this experience, from my perspective, again, is dead. In fact, the perspective that's making the observation is seemingly dead. How about that? Seemingly, I'll have to ponder on that. Doesn't quite sound right, but we shall see. Saving the battery. I got the navigation phone, the main phone. The screen's off. So let me see. Fuck. 65 miles till we got to get on a different highway. Headed up to Virginia on, I think that's 81, if memory serves. Not a fun road for trucks. Definitely going to be going through there at the right time of the morning. A lot of truck traffic on 81. Tennessee and Virginia, but most of it's in Virginia. Shout out to the chat. Oh, I accidentally turned the screen off. Wrong phone. Habit, creature of habit. And then at a certain point in the near future, especially if I manage to work a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, then we start getting into fuck you money, right? Or fuck me money, as it may be, where it's like, okay, now I have some amount of money that I know how to live on, not forever, but for a long fucking time comparatively. Then it's like, do I really want to quit a job and go back to Cali? Because pretty quickly, sleeping in a car in Arkansas or wherever, or Texas won't be attractive, although, and the bugs are already starting to come out. But then the pitching of a tent weather that'll be decent until at least July. But it's already about to be what, May? Yeah, time, the seasons, the weather. I'm toying with the idea of if I don't work through the summer, I would like to return, since I'm now going back to the West Coast, apparently. I wouldn't mind a return to the Pacific Northwest. Summertime is the time to go to the PNW. In fact, July and August, it's almost a surety that there will not be rain. Both Portland and Seattle. Well, I'd love to, honey. The voice is telling me to reduce my speed, but this car is insisting on driving the exact speed that to annoy me the most. So now I must go the maximum of 76 to hopefully pass them. Or slow down. Slowing down is not attractive because then I might accidentally hit one of these hills at too low of a speed. Get punished as I try to go up the hill. So I would say the paychecks, up after this Arkansas trip, and maybe while I'm there, I want to get the car detailed, at least the interior. It ain't good, man. There's, a homeless person slept in it for like 9 straight months. Ball joint, got a ball joint, needs to be replaced. I've got that clutch kit I bought over a year ago now with the flywheel. That's like going to be about $700, I think, to install. So yeah, life costs a lot, man. Life is expensive, as they say. But yeah, I think there's deflation is actually happening in a lot of these categories, especially around electronics. So, and then with Apple, with iPhone, they've already done the iPhone tariff, carve out or whatever we're calling it. And I would not expect that the number one item, what item causes a greater panic, maybe what your car keys or whatever. If one were to just look around and go, "Where's my phone? You know, what happened to my phone?" You know, I even panic or begin to panic, and then I start laughing at myself, like, "Look at you! Most important thing, a fucking cell phone. What a bozo, bozo detective." And this car, man, people like to do that. For some reason, on this stretch of road, a lot of the people that drive through here regularly love to, for some reason, ride through here with semis. I've never really figured that out. But I got one now that's pretty much just determined to stick to me because we don't, you know, a car can just set their cruise and more or less go a constant speed through all of this, but a big rig's a totally another. It's a completely different matter. So I'm always curious. The only way for a car to stick with me is to be doing it on purpose, hauling fucking ass down the hills and then crawling up the hills. Actually, got two of them doing it right now. 45-mile-an-hour curve. Jeez, I don't know about all that. I think it's more like 60, but enough people probably enough truckers roll over there that they made a warning out of it. Oh, it's a first you go left, then you go right. I'm going 67. Yeah, no problem at 67. So yeah, that's just more of a hey. If you hit this at 85, good luck to you, partner. So back to the. I think I've rambled enough about material goods. Although the deflation I find interesting because it's a simultaneous inflation, like with food prices. And I did a brief stream. Oh, is it 60? Oh, is it 55 for trucks? I might have missed a sign. What's the fucking speed limit? Let me see. It might be. Yeah, it must be 65, 55 for trucks. But it still says 60. Okay, never mind. I missed a speed limit sign. 60. I see. So she will let me go 63 then, without before she starts harassing me, haranguing me, berating me. All right, back to 70. See, now I've slowed down way too much, and now we're going up a hill. Damn it! Damn it! But yeah, to simultaneously experience both inflation and deflation, depending on the category, because this so-called consumer price index, uh, which excludes food prices and energy prices, like, yeah, that's actually doing pretty good. I'm like, yeah, of course it is. You've left out the two biggest, arguably the two biggest inflation categories for a regular American. A little bit of drop skill necessary to navigate or negotiate this section. So bear with me, if you would. Now, what was I started to mention something I talked about on a brief afternoon stream, and I've already forgotten what it was. What was I going to say? I lost it. Well, it will come to me. Or not. 17 miles. Wow, time flies. 17 miles to the 18. Let me double check. That don't quite sound right. So let me double check where it's trying to send us. Oh, that's, I had just marked a truck stop up ahead. Yeah, we're nowhere near. Yeah, it's just a truck stop that I thought about. I might stop at. Okay. Knew that didn't sound right. Yeah, we got 73 more miles to 81 North in Knoxville, Tennessee, home of the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Great fans, by the way. Great, excellent fan base. It was a key point I was trying to bring up. What was a key point economically? Well, I can go back to identity and how one chooses to identify in the moment. You know, from meditation and observing my own space for so many years, and then, you know, being involved with the 24-hour news cycle, you know, whatever the government is doing, you know, whatever the political system is doing, and, you know, patriotism, nationalism, you know, make America great, all of these things. Again, you know, the economy's never been great. It's not possible for the economy to be great. Why is that? Because the function of the economy is to make rich people richer every moment into perpetuity. And I think people, when they hear me say that, I'm not being hyperbolic. That is the function of the economy, so-called. But then it also facilitates financial transactions, you know, out of necessity for the working class or the underclass, the proletariat, you know, the unwashed masses, right? And then, by the way, that's you, you know, except maybe RT, right? That's you, the listener. You know, yeah, you take a bath. That's not what that means. You know, you have not been, you've not been purified. You know, with the in the fountain of never-ending supply of money. And even think about South Park and Magic Johnson no longer having HIV. And you know, they did an episode many years ago. And it basically said, you know, money. You know, for comedic effect, he was injected money into his bloodstream that purified the HIV. Well, like that is definitely a metaphor for, you know, life, I would say. So that's what I would take unwashed to be, meaning, you know, from the perspective of the money class, you know, and it is a caste system in America. Certainly it's effectively impossible for one to rise from poverty, to go from a 0 to a 1, which would be actual wealth, not the people that we think of as wealthy. Because the reality is, virtually everyone you know or you know of who you believe to be wealthy, in fact, must continue to work a job or must continue to toil in their business, or at some point in the future, they will not be able to maintain their lifestyle. And that is the definition of rich. A rich person can live out their natural life from right this moment until when they pass away or pass from this realm and not do anything at the level of going to a job or working in their business. Now they may choose to go to a job, they may choose to work in their business. That's a different thing. It's a choice. I'm saying there's no requirement for those. Jeff Bezos, presumably, if again, some could say, well, he's not actually, what the system says he is, but official fiction layer, Jeff Bezos can just call it a fucking life, right? At this point, and peace out. See that's wealth. That's a rich person. And I would say probably a lot of people we think of as on that level are probably not actually on that level. Ultimately, I wouldn't believe it till I saw it. Perhaps he's not that. Again, back to the whole all the world's a stage. These are actors on the world stage, right? Perhaps the system itself would not afford him that level of wealth. Same thing with something like Elon Musk, right? It's like, well, let's not actually, or Diddy, let's not actually give them this amount of wealth because they might choose to pack it in. And then look at, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones and, these musical artists seemingly having no choice at Madonna, having no choice in the matter. Bob Dylan having to remain musical artists, into their fucking 90s, seemingly. Right. Ozzy Osbourne. It's almost sick at this point. These crypt keeper ghouls, right? Still up there singing and dancing. Hello, my baby. Hello, my darling. Hello, my ragtime gal. It's like, you're 90. What are you doing? Or what are they doing? Just Ozzy Osbourne just loved performing. But he's still dragging his carcass up there. At how old is the guy? 70? I don't know how old, but 75. Madonna's 70, right? Or deep into her 60s. And I guess that's the difference between a man aging and a woman aging. Because if you look at Mick Jagger, I'm assuming he's had some work done, but probably quite a bit. But whatever needs to be done to him at his age versus what Madonna's face looks like, it's a totally different sport. Uh-oh. Freedom Grower in the house. What's happening? As I'm wondering if old Dick has seen the light and disciplined himself to and again back to identity. And have you trained yourself out of strongly identifying with the realm as far as nationalism, the plight of the people collectively, the loop into we level problem solving and all of this. I'm not looking for a reason to insult Dick, but it is, unbecoming of, in my view, this is my opinion, it's unbecoming of an otherwise intelligent person to behave in that manner. And I would say it's completely based on, it's nearly entirely based on improperly identifying within oneself and too strongly identified with the realm, as I was, right? I was that way, so I get it. Like I understand. I've been there, done that, and in fact, when I do begin to backslide into, identifying within myself, basically seeing myself in relation to what's going on in this realm, and then, my own emotional makeup based on that, it's like, wow, what's happening? I must really be off track here, And then I'll need to start looking at, am I getting proper rest? Am I eating properly? Is my body lacking something? You know, am I subjecting myself to stressful activities that are harming me? Right? What's going on here? What is happening? You know, this is a bad sign. And you know, as these epiphanies continue to unfold, Freedom Grower, it turns out that everything in the realm that is not the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level, in fact, belongs to this place. And what is this place? Well, I've come to call it a heaven or hell realm, presently manifesting as a hell realm. And I can explain why it's manifesting as a hell realm. But it seems to me like, based on that criteria, everything that's not identified with, that's not able to correctly identify with, you know, the nature of the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest levels of vibrational energy, is in fact dead by definition, meaning belongs to this place, which would include the government, you know, the political system, in fact, human psychology as it's being operated, you know, on an ongoing basis within the realm, you know, money, religion, right? All systems of man, by the way, corrupt, and what is corrupt will be demonic and under, you know, the influence of wicked spirits, in my experience. And I do believe that's a literal true statement. Actual fucking demons, by the way. And you know, then all of this in the context of a spiritual war, which most truthers seem to there seems to be near consensus rather around that notion of a spiritual war going on. And then I've observed, and again, this is something I myself spent many years doing. This is why I understand it, I would say, debatably. But I've witnessed Dick over a period of time, Freedom Grower, repeatedly engage in level problem solving as if any of what I just mentioned is resolvable. That's quite a leap of assumption. Well, I would say that's system think. I would say that's the realm itself, in fact, has designed and operated your psychology in order for you to mistakenly believe any of that to be possible. This come together right now and reform dystopia, you know, by singing Kumbaya, and it's not possible, right? Now, would it be possible? Or I would say, if it's achievable, it's not achievable via those means. Now we get back to the heaven or hell realm manifesting as a hell realm. My assertion is, if enough individuals transformed and transcended within themselves, and then took ownership of their own creative force that never lies dormant, and in fact always bursts something new into the realm in any, you know, each moment by moment, which is the only thing that actually exists. You know, the recent past moments of this discourse are dead. You know, it seems like there's a future that's moving towards me, or I'm moving towards it. That's dead. The only thing that actually exists, you know, I'm not trying to invoke Eckhart Tolle or whatever, or Tolle, however we say his name, but the power of now. But it's more of like, actually, I would say it's the disempowerment of the past and the mirage of a future that may never arrive. And by the way, for many folks who are here today, the seeming future of tomorrow don't exist, because they're not finna be here for it, partner. They don't exist for them, right? So my assertion is, if enough of those individuals took ownership and connected to what I know to be my essence or soul or nature within myself, what could be correctly described as what I believe the Bible means by kingdom of God, and then says the kingdom of God is within me. It also says that God is love. So, okay, well, I will then define love as the most super intelligent force of vibrational energy possible at the highest level, and say, well, okay, is that, if that's my essence or soul, and if that's what's meant by that is the kingdom of God, and that's actually, where is the kingdom? It's within me. And then, well, by extension, I can't know for sure. Now we're into the solipsism, which in my view does represent correct philosophy. By the way, correct philosophy being the absence of incorrect philosophy. I have, in a putting of everything on the table and then removing one by one philosophically the things that are then prove themselves to be incorrect through the being, the being, in this case, me attempting to apply them. I've been thus, to this point, unable to remove solipsism, at least fully. It does seem to apply. But I can at least use deductive reasoning and extrapolate that if in fact you are quite similar to me, if we are way more similar than dissimilar, then I suspect this to be the case for virtually all humans hearing, who are able to hear this live stream and then perhaps the replay, the willing few, as it may be. So all my assertion is all we level problem solving is based upon a incorrect identification within oneself, and more correctly, the being seemingly defaults to identifying in a way that benefits the realm itself, or the systems, the corrupt and demonic systems of humankind by default, by a rebellious or just unknowing refusal or inability to correctly identify and correct within oneself, and correct identification specifically comprised of moment by moment within oneself, only identifying mind, body, and spirit with I am the most super intelligent force of love possible at the highest level. Everything that's not that is not, in fact, me, while simultaneously operating in the realm with a fleshly body and all of the desires, the low level, sense enjoyment that's possible. That ain't me. That's dead, right? That's going to dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's returning to the earth from which it came, right? From whence it came, rather. Certainly. The human psychology, right? That's not surviving this place. In fact, it seems to me like whatever experience is next after this will most likely not be a human experience, at least for me. Hopefully, right? That's the hope, to not have to come back here, right? If that's a thing, if reincarnation is a thing, and perhaps it is. And then the practices that, realizing, and then now what would be needed, what is one of the main mechanisms whereby the being can get to a point within themselves to even be able to practice what I'm suggesting? I would say the transcendence of fear and doubt by trust, primarily trust, and then other concepts. But I would say one of the major concepts being something I identified in my own interactions with a being known as Kim before the storm, who has exhibited a great deal of growth of his own, in my view. By at a certain point, getting into it with him and having many disagreements and arguments, and contention, at a certain point recognizing his resistance to my assertions or what I was asserting at the time, it was solely based on his lack of trust. And then immediately applying one of my practices, which is something I discovered through some of the writings of Trappist monk Thomas Merton, which is, if I despise certain aspects around, fear, hatred, well, around the ways in which humans express, it's of no use to hate those things in Kim Before the Storm. So if I notice that Kim Before the Storm is acting this way based on his and it's a shame we've disconnected because certainly I was on to something there. So Apologies if you miss much. And in fact, I'm realizing out of habit, I think I'm just looking down and turning off the phone screen because where the backup phone is now is where the main phone used to be. So probably I'm just unknowingly turning the fucking screen off. And, the fact that StreamYard on a phone then takes that to mean let's just cut the audio when StreamYard would understand that he's got his camera turned off, so he's audio only. Like StreamYard really is hot garbage. It really is. Anyway, I'm not going to be able to recreate the mic drop. I was at a mic drop moment and looked down and oh well, we're disconnected. Great, but it happens. It happens. So back to trust. If y'all caught any of the trust conversation, we can go back and cover some points that I brushed past. And it seems to me also the psychology, being a product of the system itself, operates in an inverse or backwards way in many cases. Whereas when a being is not identified properly with its own true nature, it lacks all of these characteristics. So to trust would be consistent with the nature of the most super intelligent force of love possible. Can that force even experience a lack of trust? I don't think so, right? So if I'm experiencing a lack of trust, would I even notice? So back to the prior example of Kim before the storm, and I had this epiphany in the moment while observing him, and I just stopped him. I said, hey, I understand why you're resisting what I'm telling you. It's because you don't trust. And in fact, specifically what was happening is I would get halfway through a sentence of a statement that I knew to be true, and he would just begin to interrupt me halfway through the sentence because his own fears were cropping up, and his fears were so powerful in the moment. And what was the root cause of the fear? Was that he lacked the trust of being, not of me. The lack of trust is always in himself. He did not believe, he did not trust himself to be able to listen to the full concept. So it's a irrational fear in the moment based on not trusting himself to be able to handle whatever words were about to come out of my mouth, which is a very emotional thing, right? And it's not, oh, as men, we need to be stoic. It's like bullshit. I'm never going to be stoic. I'm not designed to be stoic. Now, when a particular situation calls for stoicism, oh, I am that when I need to be situationally. But I would say this idea of a man stoically experiencing all of life is fucking bullshit. That's system speak. That's a concept that doesn't serve me. I'm supposed to be stoic and all, no matter what happens. That's fucking bullshit. Bullshit. Right? I reject that out of hand. But yeah, I'm able to be stoic when it's called for, certainly. Of course. I'm able to be whatever I need to be when it's called for. So what will happen to the individual, right, under the no spiritual surrender model? And I'm here to tell you, no spiritual surrender means no spiritual progress. If a being is unwilling to ever use the yin of the yin and the yang, the surrender versus the active go out in there and take the bull by the horns, the being will quick, and I'm speaking from my own experience, the being will in short order inhabit a state in which no further spiritual progress is possible. And again, who will this serve? It serves the system. The psychology installed, created, designed, and installed by the system is necessarily for the system to perpetuate the system. So keep running around with like chickens with your heads cut off, based on the psychology of the system and reinforcing the system, such as when Freedom Grower continues to loop into we level problem solving because of the seeming plight of humanity, right? If there's a plight of humanity, I would assert that it's almost entirely based on humanity individually refusing to surrender to their own true nature within themselves. We're making traffic, by the way. That's what humans are doing on a 4 to 5 lane, gigantic, nice open road. These are the people that Dick would have you believe are going to come together and make a group and resolve the problems in the realm. They're not capable of it, Dick. They're not capable of driving on a gigantic open road at 3 a.m. without making traffic, sir. They are creating problems in real time before my very eyes. They're making my job harder. I'm now forced to either quit my job, or the only other choice is to expend greater of my resources because they're too checked out to know what they're doing in this moment. Hey, there's a Whole Foods. I wonder if I don't think I could have, but would have been nice to be able to go in there when they're open. I need a couple of things. That's all right. That's all right. I don't think I could have made it this far yesterday. But yes, let's create traffic. So I'm damn near in the fucking hammer lane just to get away from these bozos. And there they are. They're just right there for no fucking reason. Other than they're defaulting to their nature, which is to make things more difficult. When human beings individually default to their own psychology and their own programming, they create problems moment by moment. That is what humans default to in this realm. That's why they can't pull their heads out of their asses, Freedom Grower, and then get together and discuss problem solving at a level of logic, reason, and intellect, and then enact solutions. They lack the capacity, sir. Because why? Because they're too busy creating problems. That's why. So first, we would need to teach them individually how to discontinue the processes whereby they are creating problems in real time. And I would say that would have to necessarily begin by teaching them to stop making problems in the first place. So that would begin with the awareness that they are in fact creating problems. And I would say that the being will resist that idea in and of itself based solely on marketing. Their psychologies being designed in a way that products are able to be marketed to them via how they view themselves, meaning specifically they view themselves as all powerful and all knowing, and that's how they're marketed to. Therefore, it's not possible for it to both be the case that they are operating in the realm whereby their creative force has been subverted into creating problems moment by moment. See, that's an impossibility. More correctly, it feels like an impossibility. I'm now describing the trap, right? As I attempt to maneuver through traffic that's being literally created by one or two of the people I'm describing. There's one or two of them making problems for me on a gigantic, wide open highway because of their insistence of reverting to their daytime pattern of we look at our phone, we read our screen and giggle at our feed, and we do that by every few seconds we glance at the nearby vehicles so that we can remain in our lane and not just drive off the road and crash, see? Or more correctly, it's what they're doing. So they've been using me as the frame of reference to do that, thus creating traffic and making my life more difficult at the moment. That's what a human being does, left to their own devices. That's what a human being does. So don't ever try to talk to me as if those are the same people that we can then, that we, and by we I mean the royal we, let's be clear with the pronouns, because I'm critical of others. Let me be clear. Now we're going 45 miles an hour down a hill with the flashers on because another one of these people I'm talking about had slowed down to my speed. And the only reason I was going 50 is because I had just climbed a hill. And they slowed down to match my speed. And then I put the flashers on, reminding them, oh, that's right, that's a slow moving vehicle. So based on my own observations, I can't ever be fooled by the idea that these are the people who are capable of participating in any sort of collective problem solving. They can't get together and put a person, a politician in charge who's capable of serving humanity. All they can do is put a human in charge who serves corporations and banks, regardless of the rhetoric of the individual. And only ever from a negative motivation, such as we see politically. Americans can only put a president in office based on a repudiation of the other side of political ideas, meaning the inverse of the rhetoric that appeals to whatever side of that divide the being is on. In this case, it's a repudiation of whoever would identify with the party that would nominate something like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. So it's not a positive affirmation of what Donald Trump is going to do. It's a negative repudiation of what the other side would do given the chance. And no success that would serve humanity is possible under that model. It's simply impossible. It cannot happen. And as a being who's set up for real world effectiveness, the moment I recognize the futility of a particular strategy, I will abandon it entirely. And that is my own, undiagnosed self-autism, undiagnosed fake autism / super high functioning retarded person. I will just, as soon as I see that a certain way of thinking and acting can never bear fruit, I just don't engage in it, even if I have a feeling to engage in it. Even if I have a seeming compulsion to engage in it, I just won't do it. And that is discipline in some regard. That's my own refusal or rebellion. I will rebel against whatever would otherwise seemingly compel me towards ineffective actions and ineffective thoughts. It's like, yeah, I understand. I feel like doing this, that, and the third, except I've already recognized strategically that can never bear fruit at a level of effectiveness there. Because I recognize, well, politics is not a horse race. If I go and pull the lever for Donald Trump, thus repudiating the Democrats and Kamala and Biden, and waltz, then that does not, then the machine does not print out a betting slip in a horse race, and then after my horse wins, I get to go to a betting window and get my prize. It doesn't work that way. There's no benefit to having chosen the winner of the horse race in this analogy ahead of time. There's absolutely no benefit, none whatsoever. And yet here I am in a so-called truth community, and people continue to fall into identification with seemingly strong leadership. It is strong leadership. It's strong leadership that serves the system. That's what it is, right? It's as yang can be, right? It's as dominant can be. It's as authoritarian well, in certain ways, it's as authoritarian can be.
Reduce speed. Reduce speed.
Wow. Talking about what this one beer did to me and my kidneys. I'm just now actually thirsty. It's like now the body's like, yeah, okay, go ahead and give us some water. Now we can actually do something with it. Amazing. Because I knew it, I have to be dehydrated. Why am I not thirsty? Just now getting thirsty. Probably going to pull over and take a brief break here shortly. All right, pulling over. So maybe not the best spot, but wait a minute. Actually, see if I can creep over here to this shoulder. As long as nobody comes up this on ramp, should be able to. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, it's a much safer spot. Oh, but yeah, much safer. We never do this in the daytime, but yeah. Back to the freedom grower example, it's like, if there's an actual desire to fix things in the realm, then how about go within oneself and fix into one's own sphere of influence, where I would assert is the being's only power to affect change. And how about go in there and change whatever can be changed, transcend whatever is limited. Replace reserve on top, by the way, because that would actually benefit everyone, but only to a very, very slight degree. Because again, until enough people undergo that process, it's really neither here nor there at a collective level. Which again, this is why I'm very pessimistic when we lump humans in together as a we or a body. But I'm very optimistic when it comes to the trends of an individual. This is seemingly a paradox, but it's really not. But it seems to be a paradox. It's both things simultaneously. Again, duality. All right, give me a moment here, if you would. Bear with me. Taking care of my physical health here in the moment. At the risk of too much information, it's involves scrutinizing, the color of one of my bodily fluids here, and then thus gauging the state of the kidneys, which I trust will go right back to normal sometime today. So I want to see how close I am to optimal kidney function, at least on my scale, with these chronic illnesses. And then what emotion, does anybody know what emotion is supposedly associated with the kidneys? It's fear, right? How about that? Yep, I think we're back. Yep, we're back to normal. I would say we're back to normal kidney function. So that's good. We got that going for us. Excellent. And I suspected I would bounce back quite quickly, but it's interesting to see just the toll that 1.25 alcoholic drinks can have on the body, especially if, again, my kidney function's not normal, compared to a completely healthy person. And I say normal based on my scale, but yeah, we're right there. Bounce right back. Yes, sir. Good times. Good times. No, no, no. I want to have a good time. No. I'm like combining the Partridge Family with Fat Albert there. It's quite the mashup. I think I am. Who knows? Who knows? Who cares? I'm definitely looking forward to doing my shopping later today, and hoping that there will be, not every Walmart, and Walmart is pretty much a necessity in truck driving, sadly, but not every Walmart carries all the same items. So I'm hoping that this Walmart that I will be at later today, most likely anyway, will have certain items that I've been eating of late. And just, again, how much, this is not medical advice. So I can only relate this to my physical body, but just how healing specific foods can be. Even foods from Walmart, believe it or not. And is it really that much better to go to Kroger, another large corporation? Or, it's go to whatever random independent grocer, although more and more that's not really a thing. And then, but yeah, I got to try to get a big rig into the parking lot. And this is a lot, by the way, this is the word of mouth and common sense. When I talk about there's no such thing as common sense, but then like the word of mouthing, and then a lot of it being around, dismissal of ideas within the human, to not have to, it's basically like, okay, how quickly, when faced with a certain proposition, how quickly can the being go back to not thinking? And an example of which was when I was in my orientation, the lady, it was two of us, and she has like 13 years experience driving a truck. And that's a whole nother animal. Somebody that's actually driven a truck for 13 years. I'm at 3.5 years, maybe coming up on 4 years. It's a completely different animal. It just is. Her skills and abilities would be far beyond mine. Now, the fact that when she was at 3.5 years and I'm at 3.5 years, I may be, if you compare those two things, I may be way better, but there's no way she's not way better overall than me. That's how truck driving works. It's just what it is. And across the board. And so, the fact of the matter is, just because there's a Walmart on the fucking Google Maps or on the GPS doesn't mean that a person can just drive a big rig into the fucking parking lot, right? it's still possible to put oneself in a bad spot at the level of maneuverability, right? Now, for somebody who's been driving a truck 13 years, maybe they just know from experience which way not to go into. But like these, Walmarts are laid out differently, based on the surrounding areas. So her idea was, and it's funny when I mentioned something about, you can't necessarily get into every Walmart with a full size rig. And she almost talked to me like I'm stupid, was as if I don't realize that, well, trucks deliver to every Walmart supercenter. So based on that logic, yeah, of course, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying there's some supercenters that an 18 wheeler can't deliver to, right? That's not my assertion. My assertion is I'm not delivering to the Walmart. The fact that the truck drivers that deliver to the Walmart are able to get in and out, what does that have to do with me trying to park somewhere on the property to walk in the front door and shop? Like, these are two different things, right? And of course, I just let it go, and I just said, well, maybe you can just drive into any Walmart. It's like, I got to kind of scope it out beforehand. And when I'm looking at the satellite view, a lot of those Walmarts, I just won't even attempt it. And sometimes I think I can go in a certain entrance, and I get there and it's like, whoa, this is way fucking tighter than I thought. And now I'm like in traffic having to make some crazy fucking turn, and people are looking at me like I'm insane, because I fucking misjudged what I saw in the satellite view, like that's a real thing that's happened to me. But let's just have this lady completely discount my experience in the moment because, well, every supercenter has trucks delivered to it. It's like, yeah, what's that got to do with what I'm talking about? What's that have to do with what I'm saying? I don't get it. Bear with me. We're doing a thing here. Could be dangerous based on how quickly these rigs are catching up to me behind, but I think we're all right. Yeah, we're out of the danger zone. Probably a little annoying for them, but we made it. Big old group of semis caught us. So I'll just slow down and let them pass me if they're so inclined. Because if I keep speeding up, I'll end up joining them. It would actually be easier to let them pass me than to ride with them and then eventually break away from the group, potentially. Oh, wait a minute. That's not. I thought my lane was ending, but it's not. All right, we're good now. And that to me is like a word of mouth trucker thing. It's like, oh, you see a Walmart, well, the trucks deliver there. So yeah, they also deliver to the motherfucking Food Lion. And I've pulled up behind a Food Lion, and then, as it usually happens, then the Food Lion, they have their own in-house, fleet that delivers to the Food Lions. And then surprise, surprise, the fucking guy who wants to deliver to the dock pulled in right behind me, except now I'm in his way. Right. It's like, yeah, I understand that. Yeah, exactly. The place is set up to allow the corporation to deliver to their own stores. It's not designed for me to be able to drive in there and shop. Right. But, I could still say, well, yeah, 53-foot, truck drivers back up to those docks in 53-foot trailers. Yeah, what's that have to do with me trying to go in there and buy eggs and water and whatever else I need? What does the one have to do with the other? But then some people culturally just don't care. Some people have an attitude of, I'm a truck driver. I'm doing an important job. I have to buy food and supplies. Therefore, if other people are inconvenienced. And I actually told her, I said, it's funny, and I don't remember how I worded this, but my meaning was, we don't all have the same experience. And, part of me, and I think her culture might look at somebody like me and say, well, he's going to have certain experiences based on how he's perceived. And that is true. Like at times I can seemingly get away with murder, where she would be scrutinized and under suspicion potentially. But the flip side of that is if I try to just drive my rig up behind the Walmart and sort of park on the side, in the area in which Walmart's trucks come in and then do a U-turn and then back into the, she might be able to go back there and pull up and park on the side and get out of the truck and nobody's ever going to say a word to her. When I try to do that, half the time there's somebody just standing there looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? Like for real, just looking at me like it's like the manager or the co-manager of the Walmart saying like, what are you doing? Like, you can't fucking park back here. Like, what are you even doing? Like, I can't even get out of the truck and they're on top of me. And I also recognize that not everybody has, it's like, that's sort of the flip side of I'm just generally trusted and believed, because I think spiritually and all of this, it's just kind of known that most of the time he's just sort of doing what he's supposed to do, which is he's not going around back and getting in the way of our truck drivers, right? He's intentionally coming in from the proper direction to be able to minimize how, in the way he is of our business, which is what I do. Because I'm like, why would I just drive in and be in everybody's way? That's crazy. And in fact, it got so bad in Conway, Arkansas, and I would go there as a shopper in my car often, and there'd be 10 fucking big rigs parked in the damn main entrance. And it would make it hard to maneuver to a parking spot. And now truckers were doing this in spite of the signs that said, hey, you can't fucking park here. And eventually Walmart had enough of it and towed every goddamn big rig out of that place. And it's so much so that Asian Mai show, that Mother Trucker, if anybody's ever seen that in their feed, he did a whole video about it. And I ran into a guy at a certain point in Conway. I just mentioned it to a trucker when I was not truck driving. He's like, oh yeah, they towed me. And he was a local driver and his company made him pay. He said, I had to pay like $1,200 out of my paycheck. And he said, now I park at this hotel over here. And see, if there's signs that says no truck parking, I'm not fucking parking there. Now I'll park there long enough to go get my shit and leave. What I mean is I'm not just going to leave the rig there. That's crazy. Well, some people will. They'll just leave the big rig there. And yeah, eventually it might get booted or towed. I'm not going to do that. Hypervigilance won't allow me to do that. But like 15 big rigs got towed, And I believe it because I've driven in there and seen 15 fucking big rigs blocking everything. It's like, what is this? And she's the type that would do it. So I'm not ever operating from just, word of mouth and common sensing, because I know if I try to go around back and do anything other than a motherfucking U-turn, hell, I drive back there to do a U-turn and they're already looking at me crazy. The people who do that do the carry outs, the self shop, they do the shopping and then carry it out to the people's cars. They're looking at me all crazy, or, oh, it's the Tire and Lube Express. The fucking tech's looking at me crazy. Well, when she drives back there, that's probably not her experience. Because guess what? We ain't the same on that level. We're not having the same experience on that level, In college, my friends wanted me to go to this club. You had to be 21. Yeah, I understand. I even knew this back then. Listen to this. I knew this back then because some of my friends were able to get in on somebody else's ID. They'll just use somebody else's ID. That's not them. And it's clearly not them when you look at it. And I kept saying no. I said, there's no way I'm getting away with that. And they tried to say, well, just act cool and act this. I said, it's not my behavior. Like, by then I'm not proud of it, but I had shoplifted it like a lot. Like I know how to act as if, right? I know how to act like, I've always had a bit of a poker face in a way. Yeah, no, I understand how to control my physicality here. This is not the factor. It's it's that spiritually I just can't get away with this thing. But I didn't have the words to. But I was 18 years old to do that. And finally, I let one of my friends talk me into it. But I told him, I said, it's not going to work, man. And of course, the bouncer took one fucking look at the ID, took one look at me and said, this ain't you. I said, you're exactly right. It is, in fact, not me. And then I left. You know, I looked at my friend like, you fucking bozo. I tried to tell you. Yeah, like, maybe I actually know what I'm talking about. Meanwhile, did he get away with it when he was underage? Yeah, of course he did. Did some of my other friends get away with it? Yeah. What does that have to do with the fact that I can't get away with it? Nothing. It also is the reason why they could be righteous and not be believed when they say, well, yeah, I did that thing. But I can be like, yeah, absolutely. And I will just be fucking believed. I can't tell you the number of times I went to an authority figure and just told them something and was just immediately believed. And then I'm watching all these interrogations and body cam videos. And it's incredible to me that generally speaking, the police don't fucking believe people. Well, they believe me. Virtually every time I just tell an authority figure something, they just believe me. It's the exact, but that's the inverse of when I try to go do some shit that everybody else can do. No, I can't. No, I cannot. Spiritually, that's the same exact phenomenon. The fact that I'm believed on the one hand is why half the time, if I try to go around back and park in the wrong spot, the fucking manager just happens to be standing there looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't do this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I know I can't. How about I just do a U-turn and go back the way I came? See ya. And it's all nonverbal. It's all in the moment. And then, but the black lady with 13 years experience rides in there and just, if somebody's looking at her, she just looks at them and goes, with a particular black lady facial expression, and then just gets out, and just goes in the store and shops, and nobody says a fucking word to her. Right? That ain't my experience. It's not going to happen for me that way. Right? And I'm completely fine with it. I don't need to be able to do what she can do. Plus, it sucks to park all the way around back and then, you know, push a fucking loaded shopping cart all the way around back. That shit sucks. I'm so obsessed with keeping the eggs refrigerated now that I have a refrigerator. It's like, actually, I make a completely separate run for the eggs. I go in and just get the eggs and then come back for the rest. So I've gotten to where I just don't even really listen to people like when they try to tell me stuff. And, I will push back a little bit. Just, I don't know why. I mean, I should just be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Every Walmart has big rigs delivered to it. So what's wrong with me? Like, how silly of me to even refer to this thing. What's wrong with me? You know. But then, by the way, many Walmart supercenters, if you pay attention to the curbs and the landscaping, or you're like, hey, why is this gigantic fucking boulder right here? It's because people just drive in there with big rigs and just run shit over because the rig doesn't fit. And in fact, I've ran some shit over recently because I mistakenly had no choice but to drive into a parking lot. I couldn't get out of it without running over some curbs, unfortunately. But it was an error. Some of these drivers just don't give a fuck. Which reminds me of like West Memphis, Arkansas used to have a spot for trucks to park. And then the parking lot got so destroyed that they redid that part of the parking lot and like drew new lines for the trucks to park. But then I guess enough trucks drove in and out of there, tearing shit up and throwing fucking piss bottles everywhere, Last time I looked at it on the satellite, it's like, oh, they just completely redesigned the parking lot where you can't even drive into that part of the parking lot with a big rig anymore. You know, like, oh well, no more shopping there. But yeah, could I drive around to the area where the big rigs, the Walmart rigs go? Sure. Yeah, I'm not going to, but I could. Yeah, I could. It's a shame. That's one of my favorite Walmarts, actually. West Memphis, Arkansas. Although they do lack some of the products that I might want to purchase. So, and a lot of that is based on how unhealthy the shoppers are at that particular Walmart. Because the less healthy the shoppers, the less they're going to purchase some of the less unhealthy or the actual healthy food, right? Like an unhealthy person, why would they pay $3.50 for a jar of apricot halves, right? I think that has actual nutrition in it, you know, or even the jar of pickled beets. All right, got to pay attention. 18 miles, 13 miles to my exit. Got to make sure I don't miss it. But yeah, I now call this the word of mouthing. So many folks, and it really does harken back to the idea of common sense. Because if and I really am understanding that this is what people believe, this is what they mean by common sense. Is back in the olden days, it seemed to be more of a word of mouth, meaning more of an ability to trust that the other humans could be trusted to be sort of a barometer of how to behave and how to interact, which would be, if I can reasonably trust that the majority of the people around me are going to behave properly in a given situation, I don't need to think for myself because I can just do what they're doing. I can watch what the other people are doing and mimic it and trust reasonably that it will be based in so-called common sense, meaning there's really no reason for me to use my own powers of critical thinking and deduction, which I would say is that's just bad and wrong across the board. That's a bad instinct. And that's, yeah, anyway, I don't even want to get into it, but yeah, it's just not good. Full stop. So I believe that's what people actually mean when they say, yeah, people don't have common sense anymore. What is meant by that is people cannot be trusted to observe their behavior and mimic it, which I would say should not even be a thing in the first place. That's a bad instinct on the part of humanity, or most of humanity. That's not a good impulse. And certainly the system itself uses that instinct or inclination against humanity. Certainly, this humans. And that's how many times have I been at a Walmart first thing in the morning. I'm the first one to make it to the self checkout, and then when I was less identified with my true nature, so I was more inclined to be annoyed and frustrated by observing the behavior of the people around me. Well, there's 20 fucking self checkouts. And here comes another person seemingly waiting for somebody else to be the first one to break the seal for the day on the self-checkout area. And then why have they chosen the self-checkout next to me? Well, it's because they are word of mouthing and common sensing their life, meaning their preference is to wait for somebody else to be the first one to boldly approach the self-checkout, and to then begin checking out so that they can stand next to me and watch what I'm doing and cheat off of my paper, right? Meanwhile, in my mind, it's like, well, don't we all know how to use self checkout? No, we don't. If every single time a person has ever used self checkout, they've waited for somebody else to go to self checkout and they've watched what the other person has done and mimicked it. No, they don't know how to do self checkout. Meaning, in this moment, can they check themselves out in a vacuum without observing somebody else? The answer is no, they can't. They can do enough of it, but quickly they will have to call the lady over to help or the fella over to help because they actually don't know how to check themselves out. But the assumption would be, of course, they know how to use self checkout. I'm here to tell you, no, they do not. They know how to watch somebody else in real time use self checkout and mimic what the other person's doing. Now, what I saw at the, have y'all noticed that what Walmart has begun to do is they're herding everybody through the line? They used to herd everybody who wanted to use self checkout, sort of got directed through this maze of like last moment impulse purchases like candy bars, candy, Bic lighters, whatever little convenience items are there for impulse buys. And that used to only be the self checkout area. And then the human checkout, where we have a Walmart person check us out, that was a separate area. They've now combined the two in many stores. So what happened in Prescott, or I'm sorry, Forest City, Arkansas, was it's mostly local black folks. And what I think has happened is culturally, not all of them, but culturally, it's a little more acceptable to just, oh, I didn't realize I didn't scan that item, in air quotes, to avoid paying for something. But they know they're avoiding paying for something. And then if they get stopped at the door, oh my God, I must have made a mistake. I thought I paid for that, And then eventually realizing, oh, wait a minute, they prosecuting out here for this. And yeah, Forest City, Arkansas, you getting cuffed and stuff, partner. We booking your ass. It ain't a ticket. Yeah, we might let you off with a ticket and a court date, but not till we cuff and stuff and book your ass, partner. And so now I'm in the line to check out, except I'm going to self checkout, except there's 10 local black folks with completely full buggies, and they're standing there for 35 minutes because it's the busy part of the day, and they're all getting checked out by a human, meaning they've had it. They're done with the suspicion of, well, maybe they didn't scan everything, right? They're done with that. But then every once in a while, a local black person is like, "Fuck it, I'm YOLOing it. I'm just going for it." And then it's like, but then Benton is like, and in fact, I tried to just go. I just go around the line. If I see one or two self checkouts open and nobody's going for them, I just go around everybody. And I started to do that, and then the ladies like, "Oh, actually, this other person's." I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I didn't know what was going on here." Because I'm not going to just stand there while people don't go to the self checkout. And I was that way, by the way, before they even combined the regular checkout with the self checkout. I would just, like, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. If the person in front of me is looking at their phone, I just go to the checkout. It's like, hey man, I don't know what to tell you. You're just fucking standing there. So here I go. If you want to call it, and me, I don't cut the line. Part of that is I don't cut in line. So I'm not worried about being seen as somebody who cuts the line. I don't cut the line. It's sort of the honor system that every person who's next will police themselves, right? Now, another phenomenon that happened to me at Lassen's grocery store in Los Angeles in Echo Park, something that began to happen was, I noticed this, and this tends to be more of a millennial thing and maybe even a Gen Z, but most often it was an actual millennial would do this, to where there's this one aisle, and then you stand in line in this aisle, and then you're next for the checkout. But if you've never been to that store, it might look like we all line up individually for one of up to 6 checkouts. But that's not the case. There's one line for however many checkouts, and there's no self checkout. It's all human checkouts, and it's a relatively small store, and but it's only ever one line, no matter what. So I've noticed the psychological makeup of some of these folks is they can't stand in line. They're just not able to stand. So if they're last in line, they're not in line until I come up behind them, which then, like, now the moment has occurred. Oh no, we're trapped. Because there is sort of we're physically trapped. Now there's enough space for them to just be like, oh, okay, I forgot something. And they can go forward, right? Now remember, Benton has hypervigilance. So what happens to Benton is, what will invariably happen is whoever's in front of me will be standing so far away from the line, they're not necessarily in line, because remember, we have shelving of, ooh, look, chocolate, ooh, look, candy, but like the more expensive, seemingly less unhealthy forms of candy and chocolate, right? Oh, look, fucking a 1 pound bag of ginger crystals or whatever, which, yeah, there's some nutrition in that, sure. Whatever, again, impulse buys, other than the few people who may actually be in there for dark chocolate or whatever, or nuts, actual fucking snacks of nuts. And then also simultaneously, we have both men and women who may have a desire to have an interaction with another person who, again, whether it's a man or a woman, it's a person who may passively want someone else to talk to them, meaning, hey, are you in line? Right? And now they can get to at least respond, and then maybe a brief conversation or a brief human interaction could happen, right? Maybe. Now to see this vehicle, this has no idea that I can't go any faster, so they're matching my slow ass up the hill speed, because they don't understand that I'm actually going as fast as I physically can, even though I have the flashers on. Now they figured out, oh, that's right, he can't go faster, and we need to get in front. So slow is not going to let us get in front of it. We have to speed up. So it took them that long to realize it. Even though I had my flashers on and I'm blinking my bright lights and honking my horn at them to let them know, well, sir, I'm not choosing to go slow out of potential looming dangers. I just can't go any faster because it's an uphill. So pretty please with sugar on top, get the fuck out of the way. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So what happens to me is, if I choose to not have the interaction, they're hanging back on purpose to intentionally muddy the water, because they're plausibly could be looking at the fucking candy or whatever. Because they don't want to commit to being in the line, because that simultaneously that entraps them into the line as soon as somebody else shows up, while simultaneously perhaps wanting to have an interaction just with whoever might bebop around the corner, which in this case is Benton. So what happens to Benton is, if I then neutralize their strategy by using the same strategy, by now I hang back, now I'm also muddying the waters by mimicking them, by not committing to being in line, because now I can just stand there and look at the candy. But we all kind of know I'm only there because I'm in line, right? Because I've got stuff in my hands, right? Just like the person who's refusing to commit to being in the line in front of me has a basket with things in it, right? So we all kind of know what's happening here, do we not? And this is what it is to be a human on some level, right? All of these processes occurring in real time. and just the inherent deception and subterfuge, right? That all of us engage in to some extent, but many, if not the most humans, they do this just as a matter of course. Because why? Because they can't just boldly stride into an environment and begin to perform. Well, I can, right? I am able to do that. They're not. Because if I'm in a hurry, not that I'm in a hurry, but if I just want to get in there and get out, and I'm more inclined to tolerating a potential social interaction, I'm just like, and I usually, what I say is, am I in line to the person? Meaning, what I'm actually asking is, by extension, are you in line? Because I can't be in line unless you're in line. And sometimes they're like, they'll look around and say, well, actually, the line's over there, meaning like I'm not next. I'm just standing here looking at the fucking dark chocolate, which is them saying that, right? Yeah, good. Now I'm like, oh, thanks. And I go around them and I'm in the line. Because how many times have we thought we were in a line? We stand around, we're not in the fucking line because nobody clarified and we didn't ask. Oh, I thought I was in line. What I'm not going to do, I'm patient. I'm not in a hurry. I'll wait however long it takes. I'm not going to fucking stand there to not be in line. So when I hang back, here's what happens to me. What's possible is people can get in line from the front, right? We've gone all the way around the back. It's possible for the people to come around the front corner, not see anybody standing there, and then walk forward, turn around, and now they're next. If nobody's physically standing there. Well, if you've got somebody intentionally hanging back, hedging their bets, only waiting for somebody to round the corner from the back side, that leaves open the possibility of the people coming from the front side, which is what happened when little Chicky Poo, Gen Z, is thinking she's cute. Oh, she's standing there. I'm a cutesy poo. Oh, here comes gray-headed, attractive fella. I'm cutesy poo. Maybe he'll talk to me. But her body language, she's standing completely facing the motherfucking chocolate. But we all know she's in line because she's got her basket. And she probably ain't in the market for chocolate buying, right? But she wants somebody to come around that corner, hopefully an attractive fella, to say, are you in line? Right? But hopefully not a fella with a southern accent. So part of this is, oh my God, do I really want to unfurl the goddamn southern accent? Not really. That's part of it. But remember, TikTok has taught these broads, go to the grocery store to get approached. She's trying to get approached, right? I don't want nothing to do with this, so I hang back. Well, surprise, surprise, here comes two Hispanic ladies, local Hispanic ladies, and they just, because she's standing there facing the goddamn chocolate, I'm standing there like a moron behind her, perpendicular to her, just standing there like, how is this going to work out? They pop around the corner and just immediately turn their backs to us, at which case Chicky Poo springs to life and realizes, oh my God, I'm actually in line. And then immediately now becomes fearful and anxious and somewhat annoyed. And I'm like, that's right. I just said under my breath, very lowly, I said, yep, up there trying to be all cute. Said it in my southern accent and everything. I said, yep. I said, you up there. I said, see what happens. But I didn't say it annoyed. I didn't say it. I said it very neutrally under my breath. I said, yep, see what happens. You up there trying to be all cute? Because, see, I'm annoyed that she's up there trying to be all cute. See what happens? You up there trying to be all cute? Because now her body language has switched to, oh, now we're LA person. Now we're big city person who's in a hurry everywhere she goes. Because big city people, Los Angeles people, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Right? And as a person who's from a city, but a small city, I do understand those dynamics enough to know when I'm around the big city folk, I need to behave in a way to not trigger their let's go, let's go, let's go. They're already in a let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. With my body language, I need to convey to them, hey, I'm fucking hayseed country bumpkin from y'all's perspective, but I know to not get in the way of this. If y'all can hear my hands clapping, I understand the double dutch of that, right? I know how to double dutch. I know how to get in and skip rope to that beat when I need to, right? That's part of, by the way, A Country Boy Can Survive, which says you are only getting robbed if you go downtown. That's correct. I'm not getting robbed when I go downtown. So I understand all of those rhythms and beats. The country bumpkin don't, right? Which is fine. They're not meant to understand all of that. How could they? Right. So when I talk to certain folks who are from rural areas, even though, yeah, maybe they, spent time in a small city growing up, they don't grasp these concepts. Even as I refer to them, they, believe that they do. And I'm here to tell you, no, you do not. You can either demonstrate your understanding or you can't. And I'm here to tell you, most of you can't. Right. So then what happens? So once I see that, if I come up to the line, the person in front of me is just standing there trying to be cute and have an interaction, whether male or female, I just go the fuck around them. The moment, and I go in there every day, or I did, the moment I can see I'm about to be next, or more correctly, nobody is committed to being next in line, I just go right the fuck around them, and then now I'm next. I had this black dude in scrubs, again, probably a gay dude trying to have an interaction. Now he wants to call me out as breaking the line. Listen to this shit. And, I'm just, again, my version of hypervigilance and social anxiety, and it's first thing in the morning, and I haven't quite learned to properly identify with my own true nature. I got to socially engineer these people who are hanging out in my mirror to go around me. Thanks. In this case, by pumping the brakes and slowing down, now I'm going to slow up a hill. Thanks, people, making my job harder because they want to watch me in my mirror. Creeps. Fucking looky-loos. Because I need to turn my phone off, actually. That phone screen lights my face up. Give them something to look at. Especially a male face with dominant facial characteristics. In spite of the weak chin. Dominant facial features. Anyway. And now he wants to call me. Again, it's also a way to have an interaction. And I just, again, neutrally under my breath, I refuse to engage. And I'm just like, and I blame myself. I'm like, I was confused. I couldn't tell. Basically, I couldn't tell that you were in line. Also implying if I had any fucking idea you were in line, of course I would not have gone around you. Meanwhile, the old me would have attempted to explain, well, yeah, last time these two Hispanic broads came around the corner, immediately turned their backs to the whole scene, and now they're next in line. Right. The old Benton would have attempted to explain all of that, and then what will that trigger? The person's not going to accept that. They're going to reject, that's not possible. Now we're going to have now my autism's going to kick in, and it's like, well, actually, sir, the government has tested me in the 99th percentile, so I'm almost certain that I have a greater ability to, apprehend these details in real time than you do. What's going on here? Really? So, and that is the progress in a way is and that is the description of a sage. A sage is one who is able to work within all these dynamics and steer it, to where I experience the least amount of, difficulty possible. Right. That's my job. And then some fucking lady with a mask on, some 80-year-old, 75-year-old lady with a mask on. And that's a much different animal. This lady's sharp as a fucking tack. Now she wants to pipe up. Oh, yeah, I saw he was next in line or whatever. It's like, no, bitch, you were just dumb enough to stand behind him without plausibly being in line. And I didn't say that, of course, right? Meanwhile, she could have clarified. She could have said to him, hey, are you next in line? But that would have forced her, number one, to talk to him. Number two, it would have then forced him to move up to be physically next, right? In the little games that people play. It's like, no, now that I've been taught, you're going to just stand there, that far away from, but it only works if he would be next if he was in line. He's left enough space for three people to go up there and stand, right? So I just go the fuck around the whole show. Now I'm next. And I know the timing. Oh, now I'm about to be. Now it's like he knows he's only got a few seconds to call me out. I'm just like, hey, man, I don't know what to tell you. Some version of I couldn't tell you were in line because, of course, I would never cut line, which I wouldn't. And by the way, he's free to just go cut in front of me, which my thing is now he's getting up close to me. And in my mind, it's like, well, I mean, you could just go for it if you want. Like, I'm not physically stopping you from just doing what I just did, right? But now he's going to have to act boldly in the world and potentially be seen as and I'm refusing to have the argument I just refuse to have the disagreement. He's going to stand there and whatever happens, happens, But the hilarious part of the 75-year-old woman in the mask piping up as if now she gets to decide the outcome of the disagreement. I just completely ignored her. Like, that's neither. In the old days, I would have just been like, hey, mind your business. Like, this ain't got nothing to do with you. But then again, that's all of these. It just escalates things and adds to the tension. Right? Basically what it is I'm refusing to accept the tension of the situation. Right? I'm just refusing to experience tension or stress or any sort of anything other than the flow of the moment. I refuse to accept any sort of sticking. I just won't accept it spiritually. I'm just like, yeah, I'm flowing through this experience. This is how I'm choosing to flow through it. I'm going to keep flowing. And if he cusses me out, on my way through the parking lot, I will flow through that. I'm not going to stop and give him the business, and I will fucking run away on foot if I need to, Any resistance feeds the thing itself, right? This is what I'm coming to learn and understand and practice. And a lot of people will hear me say this and say, oh, yeah, of course. It's like, well, you can say, oh, yeah, well, of course, but most of you are not the person who boldly and confidently strides into most of these situations and begins to act. Most of you would like it or not, because it doesn't sound positive. Most of you are more inclined to, although not all, but most are more inclined to hang back and observe, or hang back and wait for someone who will spontaneously show up and be a dominant, forceful catalyst for whatever may happen, which is me, by the way. So what? I'm not the only one, And another time, way before this, I had an experience. There were two guys in front of me when I came around the corner, and they were definitely in line, but because of their body language, they weren't fully committed to facing directly forward. And it was hilarious. The moment I walked up behind and then planted my feet, they both started just moving around in this flurry of activity, back and forth, to and fro, like frenetically, sort of, what can we go and reach and grab? Because now, again, the perception before was, yeah, we're standing here waiting, but there's no tension, there's no stress. Oh, now we're trapped. Now our escape route is blocked. Now the time is seemingly limited, right? So now our time in which to reach and grab these convenience items is upon us. Oh, turning of the head, moving of the feet, articulate the body language based on this emotion of, you know, fear of missing out, right? And as a person who has taught himself to expertly observe body language, I'm just standing there watching this like, this is really what these people are like. This is really what's going on inside of them. And Mr. Miyagi would say, how can you possibly know that for sure? I can't, Mr. Miyagi. It's just I'm I'm making educated guesses that are more often than not going to be correct. Can I go with the mathematical probability that 9 out of 10 times what I'm asserting is going to be correct? Yeah, 1 time out of 10. It's like, yeah, actually he was wrong. Who cares? Do I need to practice perfectly? If I don't practice perfectly, it's nihilism, Mr. Miyagi? Okay, sure. Sure. That's a trap of the system. Is it not? Oh, I'm supposed to believe it's just a coincidence that the moment I plant both my feet, these people who were both standing there doing nothing checked out of reality. Just immediately, both of them in unison began this bizarre monkey dance, back and forth, to and fro, heads whipping around, limbs reaching out for what could be grasped. Both of them. If I had a body cam on recording this, it would be just fascinating. It'd be some of the most fascinating content ever. Fascinating. And then, this idea of liminal space, so-called third spaces, and the death thereof, just the layout and the physical constraints of the area, actually sort of creating and imposing, a psychology of its own. Because I do a thing sometimes, I'll be just like waiting in an area and somebody will come up and they'll say, excuse me, but they're not meaning like, pardon me, I'm in your way. What they mean is get the fuck out of mine. And I just say, I'm not in the way. Like I flatly and neutrally announce, oh, I'm not in the way. Meaning, okay, I hear you saying, excuse me, with an annoyed tone of voice. Guess what? I'm not in your way. So I don't know what we're talking about. Oh, I'm not in the way. And some people just want someone else to get out of their way, right? It's like, oh, I'm not in the way. So why would I move out of the way if I'm not in the way, right? Now, maybe they move out of the way when they're not in the way. I don't. I just stand there. Because of the hypervigilance, I already know I'm not in the way because I've already judged the distance. I've already accounted for, well, people may come in from this direction. They may come in from that direction while I'm just standing here. Let me make sure to stand to not be in the way, right? And how I know I'm not in the way is a gigantic human being just managed to physically get through here and I didn't move a muscle. And now somebody else has showed up. Excuse me. Like, yeah, I'm not in the way. Like, what? What is this? Like, what are you doing? What is happening? I'm normal size. You're normal size. And some gigantic human being just came through here. No fucking problem. Yeah, I kind of leaned to the side a little bit. But like, there's plenty of fucking room here. Go for it. But Your Highness, I need to step back because Your Highness has arrived. Oh, okay, I see. Narcissism. Well, the society's become narcissistic. So yeah, well, they need me to, the royal procession has arrived. How dare this peasant not recognize my Royal Highness, right? But then again, I used to walk down State Street in Santa Barbara, and these actual rich people would not want to give me enough space to walk down the sidewalk. And I would just go, out of my way, peasants, and wave my arm. And they got the fuck out of my way. Right. I would say, out of my way, peasants, and just look at them. Because it's like, hey, I'm a person, and they know that I'm trying to walk through that area, but they were actually not giving me enough space. All they needed to do was move over ever so slightly, but because they are rich and I'm poor, why would they move even half an inch for me? Unless I forced them to, which I did. Out of my way, peasants. Right. Which is in some way an acknowledgement that from their perspective, I am a peasant. Because it's Santa Barbara, and especially if they're local, they are in fact actual rich people. Maybe they're locals and they're showing their out of town relatives around State Street or whatever. You know, or they're actually shopping, high end retail shopping on State Street. And then, even when I first started going to Santa Barbara, it was the idea that, oh, well, these high end retail businesses are starting to fail on State Street, even though there's these these ships are anchored out in the bay there, these cruise ships. And how is this? Oh, it must be these homeless people who are posted up on State Street. Yeah, sure. That's what's causing the people to get off the cruise ships to walk up State Street and not to buy things. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's that the people taking the cruises ain't rich. They're not rich people taking the cruise. They're people who are experiencing enough affluence, and they're on a cruise, and they probably maybe never been to Santa Barbara, or this is the only time they're in Santa Barbara is when they take a cruise. And yeah, they have money to spend, and the businesses are no longer have not adapted to do whatever needs to be done to continue to get the money, because economic conditions have made it more difficult. And people might want a high-end retail item. Maybe they're getting it on eBay. Maybe they don't know they're buying a knockoff on the internet, right? Maybe they're buying it online. Somebody who might be willing to drop $2,000 on a handbag, right? On State Street in Santa Barbara, there's way more competition for that $2,000. Somebody from Arkansas or the middle part of the country, comes into some money. Ooh, let's take a cruise. Ooh, there's a whatever brand is associated with. Oh, I've always wanted a whatever type of bag. Oh, look, there's that store. Oh, look, I have $2,000 in cash or on my credit card or whatever. There's more competition to get that money. It's not the fact that Benton might be sitting on his gigantic hiking backpack outside, somewhere near the front door. That's got nothing to do with it. And the fact that Benton, is probably, I'm not out there asking people for money, but the fact that other people who might be down at the rescue mission later that day, might be, hey, can you spare some change or whatever? Do you really think that's going to stop an American consumer with money burning a hole in their pocket in Santa Barbara, California, who wants to have a high-end shopping experience, who's physically fucking there? Do you really think they're going to look at the homeless person and say, okay, on second thought, I'm not going to go in there? When State Street in Santa Barbara is safe, meaning the cops will actually show up within 30 motherfucking seconds and tackle that homeless person to the ground if they get out of line. And believe me, they will. If a homeless person on State Street in Santa Barbara starts acting fucking crazy, the cops will show up within 90 seconds, and if necessary, will wrestle that motherfucker to the ground. But only after trying, less invasive forms of policing. But they are not playing. You think they're playing on State Street in Santa Barbara, you're out of your mind. Now, the locals' demand is, we're not going to exclude the homeless from accessing the public space known as State Street, because they don't want to be seen as a type that would tell another human being, you can't come down here, because that gets associated with classism, that gets associated with racism, see, because some of those folks are brown, some of those folks are black, right? so that the local rich people are not willing to exclude these people, because the fact is Santa Barbara could actually declare that, do what Portland, Oregon's done, what portions of San Francisco have probably done. The locals could say, okay, we're declaring State Street and the two streets on either side of it is this exclusionary zone. And after these people come down here and get their third ticket for these type of offenses, they can't come down here no more. And if they do, it's trespassing. And by what? Guess what? That's legal. It's legal to do that in this country. They're not willing to do that solely based on how they are perceived, right? In their own social circles. They're not willing to be seen as, oh, gigantic, but horrific accident on the other side of the road, by the way. Oh yeah, somebody that could very well be a fatality. Whatever has occurred over there. It ain't nothing good. I think maybe I think they've shut down the entire interstate. Perhaps. Yeah, no bueno. This is the opposite. This is serious business out here on these highways and byways and interstates. Serious business. That's part of why I'm such a good truck driver on the open road or in traffic in all fucking scenarios, because I never fall away from treating this as serious as it is. Doesn't mean I don't take risks and chances. In fact, if I was not going to take a risk, I would not even be able to drive at all. To operate an automobile on these roads is to accept a certain amount of risk. Period. End of story. And then, part of me having such a problem with the fake pandemic was when it was happening, since I'm able to perfectly track all of these details and I'm having these conversations and this discourse in real time here. Well, so that exact same mechanism got weaponized against me, such as, oh, look, Walmart supercenters are no longer 24 hours. Oh, look, they have us lined up at 6 a.m. waiting for the store to open. Oh, look, we're nuts to butts because human beings cannot stand in a line and simultaneously social distance if they have a perception that there's a lot of people in line, right? So the same person who can air quotes stand in line at the Lassens, but they want to muddy the waters for their own purposes in the middle of the day or early in the morning, right? Or an hour after opening. Those same humans, you can't line them up outside a Walmart supercenter because on the sidewalk, because now we can't just plausibly be doing anything but we're in line. And humans can't leave enough space under those circumstances, because then someone might come up and just get in line and say, oh, I didn't know we were in line. What do you mean? I'm waiting for the store to open. So humans can't do anything but stand nuts to butts, meaning we can't social distance, but then now 10 minutes later, we're all let into the store and expected to social distance. Even at the checkout. And I'm just looking around like, what are you talking about? Why do I have to social distance now? But we were just nuts to butts outside. Like, I'm annoyed even thinking about it. Meanwhile, somebody could say, yeah, well, it doesn't transmit outdoors. And I would say, okay, well, why were half of us wearing masks then? Because we were just outside. So do you see how I was affected much more strongly than many other folks by the fake pandemic, right? By my blessing / curse of being able to perfectly track all of these, phenomena in real time, right? For the years that the pandemic lasted, by the way. And then to go on a live stream with Drew and talk about being in Kansas City, and every single person but me had a mask on, even outdoors. And then somebody's typing into his chat, well, I'm in Kansas City, nobody's wearing a mask. Yeah, that's a hoarder shut-in who doesn't leave their house. And they looked out their window and saw the one person they could see did not have a mask on. Therefore, I'm in Kansas City, nobody's got a mask on. Why? Because they are in their house and they looked out their window and their neighbor doesn't have a mask on. And meanwhile, they don't leave their home, even under normal circumstances. Now I'm going to be spiritually attacked and gaslit from the fucking live chat. Fuck you. Fuck you. I will not. I will not. Anyway, I'm getting annoyed. So to be annoyed is to temporarily fail to identify properly within myself. Because when I properly identify within myself, uh, I cannot be annoyed. So let me correct myself before I wreck myself. Check myself before I wreck myself further. Of course, if it was daytime, I'd still be in bumper to bumper traffic from that wreck where, even though it was on the other side of the interstate, my side would slow down to a crawl so everybody could go ooh, ah, ooh, if there's some bad shit going down over there. I just do what I always do. I look over, whatever information is there, and then I just keep going whatever speed I'm going. It's like, yeah, you get one look, and that's it. That's called discipline. I don't need to slow down and crane my, because that creates a dangerous situation for whoever may be coming up behind me. And if enough of us do that, now it's a traffic jam. Why would I do that? That's crazy. Why would I do that? Well, most people will. All they know is they're a human. Something potentially interesting is going on. All those flashing lights, and they can't resist. They lack the ability to resist. Okay, that's fine. I accept that they lack the ability to resist their own impulses. I accept that. It's fine. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't, as they say, whoever they may be. Rest area. Do I dare? Do I dare drive into a rest area at this time of the morning? We'll try it. See what happens. There might be just enough space for old Benton to take care of whatever he's going to take care of real quick like. Potentially. It's like it could go either way. Sometimes by now I'd be like, okay, well, there's 0% chance. Looking less likely. Looks like, oh yeah. Yeah, I think we're fucked here. I think we're driving right in and driving right out and hoping there's enough room to get through. If I had a mount for the phone, I would just put the camera on. There's a handicap spot. I might be able to get into that, maybe. This requires maneuvering, though. Seems the easiest maneuver here. And then based on where my tandems are, I'm not sure I can even get out of the spot, actually. If my tandems were all the way forward. Man, we might be able to temporarily block the, yeah, we can do this real quick like, maybe. Yeah, that's enough space. Okay, I got it. Yeah, we got it. We got it. And of course, experience is, oh shit, it's close though. On the trailer, but we're gonna make it. It's a little closer than I thought. See, my brain is doing all of this based on where the tandems usually are, which makes for tighter turns. With the way it's low, I could move it forward. I just haven't. No real reason to until I get to New Jersey. So maybe won't have to, depending on where we deliver to. All right, we're parked. Yay. Shout out to the chat. Dark chocolate. Yeah, I think JT says he used to do dark chocolate. I think I'm going to just go to the 100% and just deal with the bitterness. Because even a little bit of sugar uh, in the 85% is not that it gives me problems, but it can cause some stuff that maybe at that time of day I'm not wanting to deal with. A little bit of yawning and drowsiness. So nothing too crazy, but yeah. In fact, if I make it to Walmart today, which I'm almost certain I will, I think that's going to be the order of the day. Will be to just go for the 100%, stock up on the 100%. It's expensive because again, it's a food item, and it's if you look at 100% chocolate, it's three real ingredients. If we can believe the packaging anyway. So I think it's a 3.5 ounce, and it's almost $5 for 3.5 ounces of 100% dark chocolate. It might be more than that actually. Probably right at $5. Dream therapy. Well, I can't speak for anybody but me. Again, the solipsism, but at a certain point, I began to understand that for myself, the content of my dreams is absolutely meaningless with respect to my experiences. When I'm not asleep or dreaming. So I used to do the dream journals, and I was a teenager. In fact, read a book on lucid dreaming and was dream journaling and taught myself to remember my dreams upon awakening, and became fairly proficient at lucid dreaming as a teenager. As into my 30s, mid late 30s, I eventually began to understand that for me, the actual content of the dreams means nothing. And I view it as my brain like defragging in a way, like a computer. It's just sort of whatever process needs to happen, to get my brain into a particular state. Right. That's what for me. That's what dreaming is. But your mileage may vary, of course. All right. It's apricot time. Is it in stream time? I don't think so. I think it is. So it's bear with me time on the stream because I'm going to eat this jar of apricots. Apricot has delicious, by the way. Dark chocolate definitely, which really just means actual chocolate instead of milk chocolate, has a lot of health benefits. Definitely, or it can. Again, this is not health advice. But I'll be right back. I'm not going to eat into the mic, but BRB. All right, we're back. I will say if I manage to keep truck driving on any sort of regular, ongoing basis, um, my desire to have the money to actually be able to put proper nutrition in my body as I am now. But then again, I was able to in Los Angeles as well. So it's not necessarily that I have to drive a truck, but to do that, to accomplish that, and that may be my own lack of trust. My own. I'll have to think about that some more, but it's at least a way to, you know, at least for now, ensure that I don't have to concern myself with, wow, the apricots are up to $3.50 a jar. Like, I don't know what they used to be, but, or if next time I go in there, they're $5. It's like, yeah, give me six of them, because the next Walmart may not have them. And I remember I've been at truck stops before and something was real high priced or whatever, but I had to get moving, and somebody like the clerk, to them it might seem like a lot of money, and I'm just like, I live in a truck. I don't care what it costs. Like, just let me have it. I'm not inviting. Some people might then try to be cute and say, well, raise the price. I just mean, I don't give a fuck that it's high price. Let me have it and get the fuck out of here. But from their perspective, it's probably hard to relate to someone being willing to spend that much money on my thing is I can't. Yeah, I know I could buy this somewhere else, but I don't have a mechanism to physically get somewhere else right now. So, pretty piece of sugar on top. May I have the item? Here's the money. See you next time. See you never. And back when I could still eat, when I was eating a lot of red meat, just even being able to afford, uh, ribeye steak and eggs, I was eating a lot of early in my truck driving career. Pretty much up until I figured out how sick I was, actually. Yeah, ribeye steak and eggs. I ate that every day, like for a long ass time. Before carnivore was really a thing, actually, or before most people knew of it anyway. I got to take a 30-minute break. I guess I might as well do it now. What up, Raz Van? Right back at you, sir. Had that happen yourself? Oh, I don't care what it costs. Just give it to me. Let me get the fuck out of here. Yeah, yeah, it's a trip. But yeah, and then I don't want the prices to go up because I definitely think there's got to be people who, might want to eat a jar of apricot halves or whatever. It's like just not in the budget. Or even eggs. They say so. I'm sure a lot of people just stop buying eggs. And after what I went through in California, it doesn't even seem expensive to me. I'm paying like right at $7 for 18 eggs typically. To me, that's fucking. I'm just glad. Honestly, I'm just glad they have them in the store because there for a while, man, I was spending a significant portion of my day just like strategizing around eggs and having to, you know, really plan out, based on the likelihood of them being available at a given store at a given time. And never had to go without, but it became a challenge. And a couple of times I've gone into a Walmart and they were effectively sold out of eggs, but I was able to get what I needed. But it was like basically out, no real choices, and just they had whatever they had. But overall, it's since I left Cali, I've had access to eggs without. Now at this point, don't even think about it. I know when I go into Walmart, they're going to have eggs. Yeah, paying more on food. Yeah, Razvan. Or just some item I needed at the truck stop. Whatever that may have been. But some of it's just gotten crazy with the price gouging. I was in I think a Petro or a TA, and just happened to see AA batteries. $20 for four AA batteries, like $20.99 for like four Duracells. And again, I understand if I had to have four Duracells and I'm there, if it has to be a necessity, but I'd be the same way. Like I don't care what they cost. But the thing is, with that high of a price, who's going to buy them except somebody that has to have them, right? I would say nobody, but then who even knows what the shoplifting is like? Also, so maybe that's part of it. Is just the price on certain items probably does get jacked up because they're like, well, shit, half of these are about to get shoplifted. So if maybe they would sell them for $10, except it's like, yeah, we got to double the price because these fools are going to still have them. Yeah, it's crazy. I couldn't believe it. That's just the I wouldn't be bold enough to try to as a business charge that much for AA batteries. But some MBA somewhere, some Harvard MBA, created some formula and was like, well, actually, this is you should, maybe they'll be $100 before too long. I mean, who knows? Because in the past, they'd be like $7.99 or whatever, and you'd be like, damn. Well, actually, I can't even say that because I think they've been probably at Walmart $7.99. So I know at one truck stop they actually were running them as a loss leader. I remember paying like at a truck stop like $5 for Duracells, and I'm like, wow, this is like cheaper than Walmart. So yeah, something's funny is going on. I blame the Harvard MBA's Masters of Business Administration. That's who I blame. But yeah, oh yeah, paying more on food goes with the job. Well, except I don't eat out of the truck stop anymore. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I get it. I get it, Raz, man. You're right. Let me check, see how long I've been on break. Ouch. 15 minutes. 15 more minutes. Uh, Left the cabinet open and didn't see it and ran my head right into the part that was open. That was unexpected and did not feel so great. I'm out of beets, man. I could have walked my happy ass to Walmart and got some yesterday, but I didn't. Could have drove there if I hadn't had that beer. One beer. Yeah, I don't think we're doing that again. I do want to see if the Guinness affects my kidneys as much as this Murphy Stout in a can did. I couldn't believe how fucking horrible I was feeling for a time this morning off of one beer. Not like hungover, just like, oh my God, what have I done to myself? It's crazy. You poisoned yourself, sir. It's like, yeah, but that poison feels good in my brain. It's a hell of a buzz. Oh, and it had this dirty. The come down was fucking dirty. There's no way a Guinness would make me feel like that. I could feel it coming off of the buzz. I was like, oh, this is terrible. I had a lot of tension in my shoulders. Something wasn't right. I think, however, some big company must have bought that brand and then, you know, they're making it all cheap somehow and just making it taste like it used to, right? But then with beer, it's the brewing process has a lot to do with it. Yeah, something was off. Something was off for sure. Seen a car swipe a lorry and jumped into a tree. Right? What do you mean, like right now? Yeah, I passed a big wreck. I couldn't really tell what it was, but there was like, based on the all the rescue personnel were there, it was a fucking bad wreck for sure. Maybe somebody flew off the interstate into the woods or whatever. But yeah, it wasn't nothing good. Oh yeah. Oh, you saw it happen. Wow. You mean like just now? Wow, that's crazy. Damn, dude. It's wild. Like he flew into the tree. Well, and I had somebody I was talking about just like the concept of flying off of the interstate, and I somebody a name I'd never seen in the chat started took it very literally and was like asking questions in the chat. It's like, yeah, sometimes the cars just go flying off the road, like airborne, like the fucking Duke boys or whatever. Yeah, that does happen. They literally take flight at times. Absolutely. Don't think they don't. Oh wow, I've seen a bunch of them, man. For whatever reason. Even before truck driving, I used to see wrecks a lot. I don't know why that is. I'm trying to think of what I've seen truck driving. I can't think of anything specific, but I've definitely seen some shit go down. Well, I saw one time actually on this road in Virginia, and I saw it before it happened, and I backed off because I knew there was going to be a wreck. Because there was this car on the shoulder, and they had been trying to merge into traffic. And I could tell by the way they were driving, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And I just knew it was going to cause a wreck when they finally tried to pull into the lane of travel. And it's exactly what happened. They ended up colliding with an 18-wheeler in front of me. But as soon as I saw the way they were driving their car on the shoulder and not merging in properly, I knew. I was like, yeah, there's somebody's going to hit. They're absolutely going to have a wreck. So I backed way off. And then I stopped just to check on everybody. And the trucker wanted me to stick around and like tell the cops what happened. I was like, no, I got to get the fuck out of here, man. You know, I think he thought I was going to stay there, but it's such a minor thing, right? And I guess he thought he might get in trouble with his company or whatever. And I'm just like, no, man, I got to go. Like, what? I'm just stopping to make sure everybody's okay. And then also, sometimes if the trucker is mad or whatever, I could tell the people that caused the wreck were just based on looking at them and just the way they were acting, like they weren't. Sometimes people get the other person causes an accident, and the person who had the other party is all angry and shit. So I mainly was there just to make sure he was, gonna be cool or whatever. It's like, I'm just like, what? I was like, I gotta go, man. I can't. I'm not just gonna stay here, for what, hours? All the cops come out and do an accident. Like, why would I do that? That's crazy. Like, nobody's hurt. Your truck's barely fucked up. Their car, they were bobbers for. They were some povos. I said, their shit's all fucked up. Yeah, I don't think they're driving away. Crazy. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Raz, man. Half the time when I start complaining about the traffic, it's because people just won't get away from me. The thing is, man, unless they have to be near me, there's no fucking reason to be anywhere near an 18-wheeler if you're driving a car. If you really think if you really think that the highway patrol is going to pull you over and write you a ticket because you're going 10 miles an hour over temporarily to pass a semi, you're out of your mind. Meanwhile, if you really believe that, you can always back off and stay way behind, right? But I promise you, if you put your fucking foot down and pass a semi, the chances of then getting a ticket for speeding in that moment is pretty fucking low. But most people will then think, oh, I can go 85. It's like, no, you can't go 85. You can go 85 past me and then slow right the fuck back down. If I'm going 75, the cops would prefer that you just got around us. I promise you, the cops would prefer it. But then you need to slow your ass down, you know. But if you're cruising at 76, I'm going 73. Instead of creeping by me at my speed, feel free to hit the accelerator and hit the fast lane and go 82. or 85 and then slow right back down to 76. You'll be just fine. No, you will not get a ticket because the state trooper will see that you're passing a semi and he will see that you slowed back down. But it's this fear of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I don't want to get a ticket. It's like, all right, then don't do something to get a ticket. I've never heard of anybody in the history of the world getting a ticket because they were passing a semi. It's not a thing. And if some bozo thinks they're going to post it in the chat, I don't want to hear it. It's not a thing. If you talk to highway patrol, a lot of them will tell you that a lot of accidents are caused because people hesitate when they're passing too much, especially if there's only one lane in each direction. It's like either hang back and don't pass, but once you decide to pass, fucking hammer down and pass. So they know if they're coming the other way and you're going 90, that you're going 90, unless you're just going 90, they know, they know that you're passing a semi. It's the way it works. Damn, you drove through the tire smoke at 56 miles an hour. Wow, dude. Yeah, that shit's. It takes a lot to get my pulse going, but yeah, some stuff will happen right in front of me, and you're just like, wow, that just happened. It takes a lot, though. I hit that deer out in Colorado, and with that, I had a semi up my ass at like 3 in the morning. It's kind of my fault. I usually don't let people tailgate, but I squared up on that bitch too. But yeah, that was pretty crazy because I could see the way it's running. I was like, well, there's no avoiding this, right? Better hit him as square as I can. He went flying, doing a barrel roll right in front of me, man. Like through the air. Like, it's not funny, but like thinking about it is just like something out of a movie. Like this fucking deer with its legs all extended. And I know a lot of people feel, oh, it's an animal. Yeah, it's an animal. If you love them that much, do you love them enough not to ever drive a car again? Right? Because what am I? You want me to swerve off the road and die in a fireball because I can't watch a deer do a barrel roll through the air? I mean, seriously, like, we can't. The one thing comes along with the other thing, right? Every once in a while, a trucker hits a large deer and it goes flying through the air comically in a comic fashion, right? Like something out of a Fairley Brothers movie. And there's nothing I can do about that. I don't want it to happen. I'm not going to go out of my way to make it happen. But sometimes this shit happens. And I'm not going to think twice about it. All I'm going to think of is I'm a human. There's another human directly behind me. And that's a deer. And it's running across the front of my big rig that's going 65 miles an hour. And it's got to die. And hopefully this kills it immediately. Right? It's probably dead. That's probably why it happened so comically. It probably just instantaneously was dead. Most likely. It probably knew nothing about anything. Oh, but the deer. Oh, the deer. Let's tell you. I mean, a lot of deer meet their end that way. But then I guess shut down society, which I'd be fine with me. How about just no more driving? How about no more vehicles? No more 18-wheelers? It probably would be a much better society in many ways, right? Horse and buggy. I don't know. Does horse and buggies kill very many deer? Probably not. The wagons of the Old West. I'm not sure how many deer were harmed, right? But we're getting there in a big fat hurry right fucking now. It means a lot of deer got to die. That's just life. I can't do anything about it. So why would I even waste my time with the deer? Yeah, okay. So let's solve the poor deer part of life by knocking it the fuck off with the automobiles and the highways. Oh, well, wait a minute. You want the highway? Okay, well, then shut the fuck up about the poor deer then. You killed the deer because you want a specific society. It means you killed the deer. Think about that. It's not because I happened to be on that stretch of road and it was impossible to avoid the deer. No, that's not what killed the deer. What killed the deer is that this is what we want as a society. That killed the deer. I just want to skip the part where, the poor deer. We don't care about the poor deer. Why are we pretending to care about the poor deer? We, as a society, don't give a flying fuck about the poor deer. So why are we pretending to? I hit a dog one time. Yeah, it sucked, but there was no avoiding it. Nothing I could do but run the fucking dog over. I didn't want to, but it's like, yeah. Again, we love dogs. Yeah, not as much as you love products on the shelf, and not as much as you love the convenience of getting in your automobile, right? And being able to travel to other places and everything that comes along with automobiles. So you love that more than you love a dog, right? Society, not you, the listener, but society. You know, I definitely had more of a feeling for hitting the dog than I did the deer, but you know, it's like, yeah, this is what we've chosen. We've chosen to operate death machines, and sometimes the death machine kills a dog. Sometimes it kills a deer. Sometimes it kills another person, right? Um, so forgive me for actually having a hierarchy where the worst would be a human. Then we get to some of the animals, right? Some of the animals, it's sad. It's more sad, right? And some of them, it's just like, yeah, this is deer run across the highway, and this is what happens. You forgive me for not shedding a tear for Bambi in this moment. F the deer, thanks. Yeah, glad you're all right. Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. I intentionally steered to where I hit it as square as possible because I knew that was the best for me maintaining control of the rig. 'Cause I've never hit a deer. I have no idea how this rig's about to react to hitting a deer. I don't fucking know. So I better hit this bitch as square as I can. Mission accomplished. I never took my foot out of it because it was like, well, what's the point? I can't slow down enough to avoid it. I got the semi up my ass. Just fucking, I hammered down. I just stayed going the same speed I was going. What's the point in maybe getting rear-ended by this guy behind me? You know. And in fact, the closest I ever came to having an actual accident on the highway in a car that would have been really bad is because these people in front of me did an emergency swerving and slamming onto the brakes due to a rabbit that ran across the highway. And was I following too close? Yeah, I was. And usually I leave plenty of space, but I would never. I'm not swerving for fucking. It's not gonna happen. Like they almost lost control of their vehicle because the bunny rabbit. Yeah, run the fucker over. Or again, as a society, restructure society where there's never a possibility of the poor bunny rabbit. Don't do this weird combination of both. Let's not do that, please, if you don't mind. Pretty pleased with sugar on top. Like if you really can't, if a person really can't entertain the possibility of potentially ending the life of a bunny rabbit, don't drive a car. See, I'm being serious. Just don't drive a car. Full stop. But you want to know the uncomfortable truth? Sometimes a father is driving with his daughter, and a bunny rabbit runs across the road, and the daughter goes, "Bunny rabbit!" And the dad swerves and loses control, and either he dies, or she dies, or they both die. That actually happens, folks. That's a real thing that happens. Now it's not her fault, right? Because he might be an animal lover himself, right? And it could be a little boy, and it could be a mom driving, but that really fucking happens. And in my world, run the fucking bunny rabbit over because I'm not going to be dealing with the death of a human being because a bunny rabbit ran onto the highway. So, yeah, if I know it's going to be dangerous to slam on the brakes, and I know it's going to be dangerous to uh, swerve, then a bunny rabbit finna die. Oh well. Oh fucking well. Yeah. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. It doesn't suck 1/1 millionth of how much it sucks when a father and a daughter perish because they swerved and lost control because a bunny rabbit ran onto the highway. Don't give a flying fuck about the bunny rabbit in that context. Don't care. Don't care. Don't want to hear about it. Don't want to think about it. My only concern would be, wow, 2 people died. And the fact is, you have people who, there are human beings who actually place animals above humans. That's a real thing. It really is. I'm not that person. I got no beef with bunny rabbits. I kind of like them, actually. I used to go for these walks in the morning when I was real sick, when I was first real sick. And me and my dad were staying in Conway, Arkansas at the hotel, which they've since demolished, by the way. But, fuck, I knew I was going to forget something. God dang it. I might be able to reach it from here, though. I forgot to get something at the ready. I got some beans and some sardines I'm going to eat here in a bit. I get indigestion unless I take this betaine hydrochloride with Pepsin or whatever the fuck it is. I got to grab the pills. Yeah, there we go. I was able to reach the pill bottle. And the only reason I almost hit those people after they locked the brakes up for the bunny rabbit, by the way, at like nighttime on a dangerous 2-lane highway in Arkansas, was because I don't have a part of my brain that would ever lock up the brakes because I saw a bunny rabbit. So I mistakenly believed, again, common sense would be you don't lock the brakes up because there's a bunny rabbit. In my world, that's common sense. If you can avoid the bunny rabbit, you avoid the bunny rabbit. I'm fucking up. Now I left my water back there too. I can't multitask, man. That's the thing. I'm not a multitasker. So I was focused on this chat we're having. Yeah, I left my water back there in the sleeper. Damn it. Now we've picked up a hitchhiker. We got to let him know to get the fuck around. Because I'm not looking at your headlights for the next however long. You're going to pass me, whoever you are back there. It's just only a matter of how slow are they willing to go. And sometimes they're farther back than you think. And his headlights are not aimed properly, so it's like it's as if I'm being bright lighted, even though I'm not. Unregistered white Chevy sedan of some kind. Probably caught me with the adaptive cruise control, most likely. Let me see where I'm at on my battery. Yeah, we're doing all right on the battery, but probably going to get out of here maybe another 20 minutes or so. I did not want to have to stop again, but at some point I will have to retrieve that water, my water bottle. Water bottle. All right, I guess I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. Bye.